In the desolate outskirts of the city, a group of scavengers ventures into a restricted zone. One of them, a boy in a camo jacket, is terrified, but his fear is dismissed until a strange vibration ripples through the very ground beneath them. A colossal glowing hand bursts from the concrete. It's a shard, a creature of nightmares, and with a silent scream, they know they have to run, but it's too late. A shockwave sends them flying. Just as the monster's attack connects, a blue-haired boy appears, shoving them to safety. He quickly checks if the scavenger is okay. The boy spots a pendant, a guard's insignia. The guard tells them to flee while he handles it. He raises an arm, forming a massive energy shield. The scavengers can only watch in horror, urging him to escape. With a final apology, they abandon him to his fate. Now alone, the guard faces the towering creature. But then he sees it. They left their friend behind. A flicker of anger crosses his face. He launches himself not at the monster, but towards the fallen boy, grabbing a dropped knife. He uses the shard's own body as a ramp, aiming for the weak point buried underground. With a desperate cry, he prepares to strike. He drives the blade into the creature's glowing core. The impact sends a shockwave through the ground. But the core is far tougher than he expected. A violent explosion of energy throws him backward. He hits the pavement, stunned but not defeated. The shard's core erupts with raw power, leaving nothing but shattered concrete in its wake. Our boy is pinned beneath the creature's massive arm, and he realizes he's in over his head. Yeah, a bit dangerous is one way to put it. But just then, a flash of light cuts through the air. Threads of energy slice through the monster's limbs. He looks up to see his unexpected backup has arrived. A pink-haired girl named Shin Jae-rim, a fellow guard. She and her partner assess the situation, but Haichan tries to warn them about the civilian. Jae-rim coldly tells him to stay quiet and unleashes her own devastating attack. She rises above the writhing creature, her expression filled with a chilling fury, then dives straight for the shard's core. The resulting explosion obliterates the monster completely. With the threat handled, she reports the civilian is safe. She turns to Haichan, remarking they were lucky it was a weak one. She orders her subordinate to escort the injured boy away. Then she finally addresses Wu Haichan by name, scolding him for jumping into a fight without any powers. He argues back that his actions saved lives, but she fires back that a real guard should have handled it. She questions how he even got there first, but they're interrupted. Her partner informs Haichan he's being reported to his superior. Haichan panics, trying to avoid getting his guardian involved, but Jae-rim tells him to learn his place. Her words hit him hard, leaving him speechless, a reminder of what guards are meant to be. Powerful protectors. He looks at his insignia, wondering how he can protect anyone when he can't even protect himself. He sits in the ruins, reaffirming his identity as a guard. We flash back 7 years to the day of the first calamity, when monstrous creatures emerged, laying waste to the land. The destruction claimed countless lives, but a few miraculous survivors awakened with glowing eyes and new powers. They became humanity's protectors, known as the Guards. These guards discovered sealing stones that could suppress the calamities. And around these stones, civilization began to rebuild. The year is now 2030, in the first special city, Daejeon. A news report announces 2 more casualties in the restricted zone. The anchor warns citizens to stay vigilant as the death toll climbs. The broadcast plays inside the bustling Daejeon Guard headquarters. Haichan arrives only to be greeted by a man named Kyung-han, who asks what trouble he's gotten into this time. A valid question, really. Kyung-han worries for him, reminding him he's not a proper guard. But another guard with a colder demeanor interrupts them. He tells Kyung-han not to get involved, calling him a bother. As he's pulled away, Kyung-han tells Haichan not to skip dinner. Haichan just offers a cheerful wave, ignoring the whispers about him. The other guards watch him go, wanting nothing to do with the crazy kid. That night, he ignores every warning and leaps into a restricted zone. As a citywide curfew is announced, he lands silently. He sits on a rooftop, thinking he's not weak, just unlucky. His frustration grows. No one ever listens to what he says. His only official power is enhanced physical ability, and something more. His eyes glow, revealing dark signatures of energy across the city. A massive pulse of power rushes through the streets, unseen by others. This is his secret. He can see and hear what no one else can. And right on cue, the ground begins to crack and glow. A new shard emerges just as he expected. But before he can make a move, a voice calls out. He turns to find a small, glowing child in the alley. A strange kid who somehow knows his name. His first instinct isn't to fight, but to protect. He dashes forward, scooping her into his arms. Just as the shard's energy erupts from the ground, landing safely, he asks why a child is here all alone. His concern for her safety overrides everything else. He's completely baffled by how she knows who he is. But there's a much bigger problem looming right in front of them. He tries to push her to safety, but she insists she was looking for him, that someone told her he would be the one to help. As he runs for cover, she calmly explains the monster is just a bit angry. Yeah, a bit is one way to put it. She then gets distracted, noting he looks older than she remembers. He tries to shove her away, completely done with this bizarre encounter. He demands to know what she is and how she knows his name. Her answer is simple and brutal. He's weak. Weaker than she expected. The words hit him just as another blast of energy. Slams down, narrowly missing them. He slumps to the ground, the weight of his failure crashing down. Now even a strange child is pointing out his weakness. He finally lets it all out, calling himself a useless guard. He questions if any of this is even his fault. He just wanted to help people. The same way he was once helped. As the monster strikes again, he apologizes to the girl, believing that if he were stronger, this would all be over. But Miro simply reaches out, telling him it's okay. She's just glad that he's a good person. Miro gets straight to the point, asking if he wants power. The power to become stronger, to protect the ones he cares about. As another blast of energy rips through the air, she offers him exactly that, a gift she can bestow. The monster roars, its power surging around them. She tells him to simply reach out his hand. A simple gesture, but one that could change everything. But the shard isn't waiting for a decision. Its massive fist crashes down with devastating force. Yet somehow they're untouched, shielded by strange blue orbs. He stares in disbelief, trying to process what just happened. Miro just looks at him, completely unfazed. She asks for his help, a strange request from a kid who just saved him. In return, she'll give him the power he's always craved. He reaches out, his desperation overriding his confusion. A vision floods his mind, a creature in agony begging for release. The psychic backlash hits him hard, a jolt of pure suffering. He pulls back, staring at the child in front of him. He demands to know what she really is. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, a report comes in. Shin Jae-rim returns from her mission, greeted by a superior. But something feels wrong. The shard attacks are changing. Their locations are shifting, getting closer to the city center. The implication is chilling, and she knows it. The safe zone in Daejeon is shrinking. It's only a matter of time before they appear in populated areas. The man on the phone confirms their worst fear. The sealing stone is weakening. He then asks about her other report, the one concerning Wu Hai-chan. She explains how dangerous his actions were, requesting a formal warning. Suddenly, the man on the other end starts choking, and Jae-rim's face fills with panic. She desperately calls out for her manager. But the line goes dead, leaving her alone with an unconscious Hai-chan. Hai-chan slowly begins to stir, his vision blurry. He opens his eyes to find Shin Jae-rim standing over him. He jolts awake in his own bed, completely disoriented, and sees his guardian Young Moon sitting by his side. The head manager of the field team wants a private word. Hai-chan is stunned, wondering why his busy guardian is here. Young Moon cuts right to the chase, asking why he was passed out in the street. The memories of Miro and the shard feel like a distant dream. Young Moon tells him he's heard all about his latest reckless encounter, but Hai-chan proudly states that he saved everyone, a fact that doesn't seem to impress his guardian in the slightest. Young Moon reminds him he was only made a guard to protect him, as someone without a family. But Hai-chan argues he was chosen for his potential. A potential that, after 2 long years, has failed to materialize. He admits he'd hoped powers would awaken eventually. But now he delivers the crushing blow. It's time to quit. Hai-chan explodes, reminding him he was the one who started him on this path. But Young Moon is unmoved, suggesting a return to a normal life. He warns that without abilities, this life will only get harder. The word abilities triggers a flash of memory, a forgotten power. Young Moon's final words are a gut punch. He's a burden to everyone. The words leave Hai-chan utterly broken. He clenches his fist, the frustration boiling over. He knows he has a power, one no one else can see. The unique ability to perceive the energy of the calamities. Just then, a tiny floating creature appears, teasing him for crying. His frantic reaction alerts someone outside his door. It's Miro, in a new form, warning him to be quiet before they're discovered. The glowing furball zips towards him with surprising speed. Hai-chan recoils, calling it a talking furball, much to its annoyance. The creature formally introduces itself as Miro, and with a pop, it transforms back into the little girl from the alley. She explains that after he collapsed, she brought him back here, adding that he was simply too weak to handle the power she'd offered. The memories flood back, and he realizes it wasn't a dream after all. Miro promises to control her power better from now on, a statement that only raises more questions. He leaps out of bed demanding to know what she is and who gave her permission. He frantically tries to classify her, a calamity, a shard, something else entirely. Miro just flips through his textbook, casually noting that he talks too much. The book details the nature of calamities and the sealing stones. Her hand touches the page, a flicker of recognition in her gaze. Hai-chan tries to stop her, telling her to answer his questions. He desperately asks one more time, "What are you?" But she just dodges, repeating that she is Miro. Clearly, communication is not her strong suit. She then changes the subject, telling him they're already late. And with a deadpan expression, she asks if he's afraid of heights. His terrified face is all the answer she needs. She grabs him and launches them both out the window into the night sky. He screams that this is a kidnapping, but Miro just calls him a drama queen. They soar over the city, heading towards an abandoned village in the restricted zone. She drops him unceremoniously onto the cracked pavement. He looks around, completely lost, as Miro shifts back to her child form. But something about the ruined landscape feels familiar. He recognizes it from a book, a district sealed off because its sealing stone is weakening. He panics, warning her they'll be killed if they're caught, but Miro doesn't seem to care. She says she came because her friends called her and asks if Haichan heard them. He's confused, but she insists he heard their voices. She reminds him of what he saw when he touched her hand. The screams, begging for help. Miro tells him he's different, that he can see what others can't. She explains it's because Haichan is just like her, a statement that leaves our boy completely stunned. His eyes widen as the world around him begins to shift. The ruined city is suddenly flooded with a crimson energy signature. He stumbles backward, unable to process what he's seeing. Miro pleads for his help, promising to tell him everything in return. She'll explain who she is, who her friends are, and the truth about the sealing stone. She points to the very question he'd circled in his own notes. She claims to know all the answers he's been searching for. We flash back to a lecture explaining the two types of monsters. The main body, the Calamity, is trapped underground. But when a barrier is formed, parts of it can break through the surface. These pieces are what the guards call shards. They're smaller and significantly weaker than the main body. Still a threat, but supposedly manageable for a basic guard. We see the world as it is now, a mix of ruin and recovery. The first guards had mapped out strange pockets of peace. They were searching for an answer to the endless destruction. And in the center of these zones, they found the sealing stones, mysterious artifacts radiating an unknown protective energy. The official conclusion was simple. The stones were their salvation. But Haichan, even while studying, always had his doubts. He felt that something about the official story was wrong. He could see the glowing light beneath the city streets, the true, massive form of the so-called Calamity. Its movements didn't seem monstrous, but desperate, like it was trapped. Miro brings him back to the present, echoing his own questions. She offers a terrifying theory. What if the stones aren't sealing the Calamity, but are the Calamity? Haichan asks what she expects him to do. Miro simply tells him they've arrived at their destination, and what he sees sends a jolt of terror through him. It's a sealing stone, just like the ones in his books. But this one is on the verge of breaking completely. He realizes they're in an area the guards gave up on. But even here, the security systems are still active. Miro's command is simple and insane. Destroy it. Haichan refuses, knowing it's a suicidal mission. He warns her of the consequences, but she's not afraid. She claims she'll be given power to handle it. And while he's busy arguing, she takes matters into her own tiny hands. An alarm immediately blares, alerting the entire city. He tries to drag her away, but she refuses to budge. Her logic is flawless. She'll just blame him for everything. She gives him an ultimatum. Learn the truth. Or run away and live in ignorance. He doesn't have an answer, but he takes her hand. A surge of power floods through him as he makes his choice. He channels all of it into a single desperate strike. The impact sends a shockwave through the chamber. He stares at the stone, now covered in fractures. He screams, questioning his own actions. But Miro reminds him there's no turning back now. With a final determined roar, he swings again, pouring every ounce of this borrowed power into the blow. She urges him on, telling him to finish it. And with a final deafening crash, the stone shatters. He can only stare in disbelief at what he's done. But from the rubble, a sinister red light begins to glow. Haichan can only scream in absolute terror. A violent torrent of red energy erupts from the ground, sending them both flying backward. From the crater emerges the true Calamity. He panics, but Miro calmly tells him he knows what to do. She points to the glowing core, his one and only target. She tells him to trust her, that he has the power now. With a surge of resolve, Haichan prepares to move. He curses his hesitation and plants his feet, then launches himself forward in a blur of blue light. He moves with a speed he's never felt before. Leaping into the air with newfound power, he uses the Calamity's arm as a ramp, a familiar move. He's shocked by how light and agile his body feels. This must be the power Miro promised him. He knows his normal self couldn't even scratch this thing, but for the first time he feels like a real guard. He continues his ascent, closing the distance. He effortlessly dodges the creature's massive swipe, twisting through the air with impossible grace. His eyes are locked on the monster's core. He propels himself forward for the final attack, and lands right in front of his target. His expression is one of pure, unyielding focus. The creature's psychic voice screams in his mind, begging to leave, a desperate plea to be set free from its prison. Haichan floats before it, surrounded by his own power. He tells the Calamity that its suffering is about to end. And with a final roar, he throws a punch, striking the core with the force of a meteor. The impact shatters not the core, but a psychic barrier. And in that moment, he sees a familiar, glowing face. He's surrounded by countless souls, finally set free. A brilliant flash of light washes over everything. We're pulled back to a memory of a lecture, one that explained the simple method to defeat a calamity. The key was always its glowing core, its only weakness. Destroy the source and the monster would simply vanish. He sees the spirit of the boy he tried to save, who offers a silent, peaceful thank you before fading away. Back in the present, the freed souls ascend into the night sky. Miro quietly explains that she saw people. Haechan realizes these were the friends she was talking about. She confirms they were the souls of the unjustly lost, trapped by the stone, so less friends, more hostages. Got it. He's still struggling to understand, so she begins to tell him a story of a terrible event that happened here long ago, a memory of a simple flower in a field. Miro says it was a tragedy that should never have been repeated, a sudden violent flashback to a dark day. The ground was littered with the fallen, including children. She explains that many were lost, with no reason given, and the sealing stone was created to hide this terrible truth. People feared the vengeance of the restless spirits, so the stone was used to trap them, but their growing sorrow twisted them into monsters. This, she reveals, is the true origin of the calamities. The stone wasn't a shield. It was a cage that created the very thing it claimed to contain. Haechan tries to argue with official guard doctrine, but Miro reminds him he always suspected the truth. She tells him that because of his actions, this place is finally at peace. Miro looks at him, her part of the bargain fulfilled. But their work isn't over, and she urges him to follow. She tells him there's something he needs to see, and demonstrates her power with a flash of blue energy. As they race through the woods, she tells him they're heading to higher ground. Haechan is, as usual, completely lost. She leads him to a cliff overlooking the destruction he just caused. He can feel the calamity's energy is gone, and Miro states her true purpose, to save her friends. He realizes she wants him to destroy every sealing stone. He argues it would destroy the city, but she counters that the city is already doomed. How very reassuring. They stand on the precipice, the fate of Daejeon below them. She takes his hand, preparing to show him the truth. His eyes glow as his unique perception is activated, and he sees it. Massive rivers of energy flowing beneath the city, far too powerful for the stones to contain. Miro explains that the calamities are merging, growing stronger together. If they aren't freed individually, they will erupt all at once. He understands this isn't just for the dead, but for the living too. But he still has to ask, why does it have to be him? Miro reminds him of what she's already told him, that he's special, the only one who can do this. She formally asks for his help one last time. Reaching out her hand, she asks if he will join her cause. The weight of the world settles on Haechan's shoulders. With a heavy heart, he finally agrees to try. But their private moment hasn't gone unnoticed. A forgotten security camera whirs back to life. Its lens captures the aftermath of the stone's destruction. Meanwhile, back at Guard HQ, the alarms are still ringing. The operations room is a hive of activity, prioritizing civilian zones over the abandoned village. Just then, Haechan's guardian, Young Moon, arrives unexpectedly. He confirms that J-Rim called him about Haechan's little adventure. Another guard asks him to go easy on the kid, but Young Moon's expression is hard to read. A guard is stunned to see Young Moon, asking why he's in a sealed-off area. Young Moon's expression is grim as he demands a direct report. He strides forward with an unnerving calm. Elsewhere, an official tries to report to the Prime Minister, Kang Young Moon, but he's cut off by a sudden violent blow. As a shattered helmet hits the floor, Young Moon confirms he's aware of the situation. He dismisses the destroyed stone as a minor issue. The real problem, he says, is something else entirely. He holds up the grainy security footage of Haechan and Miro. His order is simple. Find them immediately. He points to the blurry image of the boy, and with a chilling intensity, he commands them to bring him in. That's an order. His subordinate asks if he's all right, clearly concerned. Wiping blood from his face, Young Moon calls for an urgent meeting. Casual workplace violence, I see. In a different time, a hand holds a glowing insignia. A woman gives a quiet order to spread the word. A bearded guard listens, his own insignia glowing in response. 1 week later, the leaders gather at central headquarters. An insignia is placed on the table, calling the meeting to order. A white-haired man explains this is a meeting for the top brass. And we're pulled into a history lesson, back to the Korean War. A dark chapter where civilians were executed under false pretenses. The story explains that these sites of tragedy became hotspots for strange phenomena. Back in his room, Haechan pieces it all together with Miro. He recalls that all records of the stones vanished around the 70s, leaving the trapped souls to fester and grow stronger for decades. Miro explains they're still working together, trying to break free. And if they succeed all at once, the entire country goes boom. No pressure. Haechan realizes this insane theory is actually supported by the guard's own data. The patterns of shard appearances confirm the calamities are connecting. Haechan realizes that if Miro's story is true, they have to eliminate the calamities one by one. He asks how she knows all this, but Miro just calls it a secret. He still wonders if he can really trust this floating furball. but as he tries to access guard files, he's suddenly locked out. He was just in the system a moment ago. A notice appears. His clearance has been downgraded to probation. If he doesn't get promoted back in a month, he's out for good. What a great time for a performance review. Just then, Kyung-han calls, and Hae-chan begs him to check the system. But his friend confirms it's no mistake. It was the manager's decision. He's being benched with no idea for how long. He hangs up the phone, completely defeated. Miro asks what's wrong, but the answer is obvious. As a probationary guard, he can't access any information. He's a guard in name only now. Miro's simple logic doesn't help his spiraling panic. He rants about the hundreds of stones and the need for a strategy. Rushing in blindly is the dumbest thing they could do. He's stuck, with no way to move forward. But then a thought strikes him. He realizes there might be one way, a single path to get what he needs. He has to get back to being an official guard immediately. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, the other guards are relaxing. A man from the tech team offers J-Rim a drink. He makes small talk about her tough job. She questions why he's even in their building. He jokes, then casually brings up the latest gossip. The whispers are about Woo Hae-chan losing his qualification. The man asks about Hae-chan being expelled, and J-Rim is stunned. We learn the guard is divided into two main departments. The field team, who fights on the front lines, and the tech team, who handles research. A department that, while important, is generally looked down upon. The desk jockeys, if you will. So it's a surprise when J-Rim hears Hae-chan volunteered for it. She and her partner spot him just down the hall. He seems far more composed than she expected. Her partner tries to get her attention, but she's fixated. She can't believe he'd willingly move to the tech team. She confronts him, reminding him how hard he fought to stay in the field. She sarcastically asks if he finally came to his senses, but his eyes hold a quiet, unreadable determination. He just shrugs off her question with a simple probably. And with a casual wave, he leaves them behind. Her partner notes that Hae-chan is acting weird, but then again, he's always weird. Fair point. She then points out J-Rim's unusual interest in the boy, which gets a flustered reaction. But J-Rim knows this is different. He's not lashing out like he usually would. She can't shake the feeling that he's hiding something. Later that night, she sees him leaving headquarters, and decides to follow him from a safe distance, wondering where he could possibly be going at this hour. He walks with a purpose she hasn't seen before, and she follows close behind, trying to stay hidden. He heads straight for another restricted zone. Of course he does, ignoring every single warning sign posted on the fence. She watches in disbelief as he effortlessly leaps over the barrier. She can't believe he's doing this again. He finds a spot on a rooftop, settling in for the night. J-Rim peeks out from her hiding spot, completely baffled. She suddenly questions why she's even sneaking around, insisting she's only here because she's worried he'll get himself killed. She looks around the desolate streets, completely bewildered. She wonders where he could have possibly disappeared to. Hae-chan peeks out, questioning J-Rim's sudden interest in him. Miro, in her furball form, just offers a silent, unhelpful stare. Deciding to be cautious, he powers up, ready to finish his training quickly. Elsewhere, a guard receives an urgent meeting notice for team leaders in Daejeon. He grumbles about the lack of a heads-up, feeling disrespected as a tech team leader. A subordinate approaches, handing him the day's key reports. The leader asks if there's anything unusual, but is told it's business as usual. He then pulls out a file with Hae-chan's photo, recognizing him. His subordinate confirms Hae-chan requested a transfer to their team. The leader notes that for all his passion, Hae-chan is probably better suited for a desk job. The subordinate asks if he should reject the transfer request, but the leader quickly approves it, saying they're in no position to turn people away. He decides to meet the boy in person, since they're all family now. How welcoming. Back in the woods, Hae-chan unleashes a blast of raw energy. He focuses, trying to push his newfound power just a little bit further. The energy erupts from his hands in a brilliant flash. He decides to try a new approach instead of a direct strike. He attempts to gather the energy, his eyes glowing with concentration, then releases it in a wide, sweeping arc. His gaze is locked on his target, his focus absolute, but the energy just dissipates against a tree, losing all its form. He complains to Miro that he should just stick to punching things, but she reminds him that physical strikes have limits and he's wasting his potential. She explains that manifesting power is what defines a guard's rank. Hae-chan admits that no matter how hard he tries, he just can't get the hang of it. He clenches his fist, reviewing the 3 things he's learned so far. 1. He gets power from Miro, and his hair acts as a very stylish battery indicator. And 2. Unlike other guards, he's stuck with good old-fashioned punching. And 3. He's just realized something important. Miro's power is far greater than he ever imagined. Suddenly, his hair flares with a surge of energy. The ground erupts in a pillar of blue light. A massive serpent of pure energy rises before them. It opens its jaws in a silent, terrifying roar. But Hae-chan realizes this is just a distraction. The real body, he understands, is somewhere else. He spots a faint trail of energy leading deeper into the woods. He tells Miro to go, and she complains about being used as a ride. Gotta catch 'em all, I guess. Back at headquarters, a team is dismissed after a long day. J-Rim's group chats about the latest gossip. The rumor of a stranger breaking ceiling stones. Her partner asks if she knows anything, but J-Rim plays dumb. Just then, Kyung-han rushes in, calling for Hae-chan. He finds our boy standing right there with the others, and delivers the news. His transfer to the tech team is approved. Hae-chan is ecstatic, much to Kyung-han's surprise. His friend asks why the sudden change of heart. Hae-chan just says he had to face reality, an answer that J-Rim is clearly not buying for a second. Kyung-han tells him to follow along and learn the ropes. The two walk off, leaving a very suspicious J-Rim behind. Hae-chan seems genuinely happy with the arrangement, but his cheerful demeanor only deepens J-Rim's distrust. He walks away, a new plan already in motion. Later, he prepares to leave his room, telling Miro he's going to the archive. He needs the latest information, and he has to get it in person. He tells his tired little companion to stay put. But Miro asks if he's really okay with leaving the field team. He admits it was important, but says he's learned something more. Hae-chan tells Miro to lock up before he leaves. But the little furball knows he's not telling the whole truth. He arrives at the archive, his new plan in motion. He reveals that during his secret training, he's already destroyed 3 stones. They were abandoned and small, but he's sure someone has noticed. He scrolls through the data, realizing they're covering it up. He leans back, wondering if this oversight is actually a good thing, but his focus quickly returns to the task at hand. His thoughts drift back to why he joined the field team in the first place. We flash back 1 year to a hospital room. A doctor explains that Hae-chan has amnesia from a past disaster. Young Moon watches the boy, remembering him from that day. Hae-chan asks if he's the one he remembers. A memory surfaces of him trapped beneath rubble, and the guard who pulled him from the darkness. The man who saved him from a monster's attack. Back in the hospital, Hae-chan asks if Young Moon is a guard, and with a hopeful expression, he asks if he can become one too. He explains that someone told him he has the same power. He just wants to know if he can be like his hero. His eyes are wide with a desperate plea. Young Moon looks down, a flicker of thought crossing his face. He places a hand on the boy's head, giving him the answer he wants. He smiles, telling Hae-chan he'll be looking forward to it. In the present, a single tear escapes Hae-chan's eye. He shakes it off, trying to bury the painful memory. Nothing like a good cry in the archives. He knows he can't ask for help. No one would believe him anyway. He considers the terrifying possibility that the guard is hiding the truth when something on the screen catches his eye. A report mentions a liberation group, a new lead in this growing conspiracy. The report mentions a liberation group, a name he's never seen before. He immediately calls for Miro, telling her they need to talk. But as he reaches his room, he finds a very unexpected guest. Shin Jae-rim is passed out on his floor, and Miro is just sitting there. This is awkward. The little furball seems completely unbothered by the situation. She explains that someone was at the door, so she decided to answer it, as one does, and came face to face with a very confused J-Rim, who was not prepared to see a talking, glowing cloud. So Miro's solution was to knock her out. He completely loses it, asking why she would do that. He can't believe her solution was brute force. Miro sheepishly admits that, yeah, that's pretty much it. Just then, their unconscious guest begins to stir. Her eyes flutter open, her vision slowly returning. She sees Hae-chan giving a very guilty-looking wave, and the strange creature from before, she jolts upright, pointing a finger. But before she can scream, Hae-chan lunges to silence her. He tries to play it cool, telling her to calm down, a plan that backfires when she bites his hand. Hard. She accuses him of hiding the creature, her suspicions confirmed. She grabs him, demanding to know what's going on, then snatches Miro, holding the furball up for inspection. Her eyes glow with a strange power as she inspects the creature. Suddenly, a strange, colorful light fills the room. He turns to Miro, demanding to know what she just did. Miro explains this is what happens when a normal person is given her power, reminding him once again that he is different, he is special. J-Rim's body crackles with borrowed power. She swings a blade of pure energy at him. Hae-chan panics, trying to stop her from attacking. He pleads with her, admitting he knows she dislikes him. But she's not interested in apologies, demanding to know what he's been hiding. He denies everything, but she calls him out on his recent strange behavior. She knows he wouldn't just give up on the field team, that something bigger is going on. He's a little creeped out that she's been watching him so closely. She gives him an ultimatum, explain everything now, or she's reporting this strange creature to her superiors. He realizes she's far more perceptive than he gave her credit for. She challenges him, asking what he plans to do. He knows there's no talking his way out of this one. He turns to Miro, asking if her power can even be shared. Miro explains that for a normal person, it would be useless. As they whisper, J-Rim's patience wears thin. Hae-chan finally relents, agreeing to tell her the truth. But first, he needs her to come with him, a request that fills her with absolute dread. Soon, they're soaring through the sky on a very grumpy-looking cloud. J-Rim demands to be let down, but Hae-chan just tells her to be quiet. He shows her the ruined landscape below. She realizes this is where he's been sneaking off to. He begins to explain the official story of the sealing stones, but then he poses the questions no one else has asked. She tries to dismiss his theories as a waste of time, but he tells her she's about to have plenty of it. They land in a ruined village, and he takes her hand. Miro returns to her child form as Haichan makes a plea. He tells her to just watch and see the truth for herself. J-Rim can only stare, completely horrified. She realizes he's about to do it again. Haichan powers up, ready to shatter another sealing stone. He rushes forward, a blur of unstoppable energy. J-Rim tries to intervene, but Miro holds her back. The little girl asks if she's Haichan's friend, a question J-Rim vehemently denies. So just a concerned stalker then. Miro tells her that to understand, she has to believe in him, insisting that Haichan is not a bad person, and that he's only doing this to save Miro's friends. As the calamity emerges, J-Rim asks to see these friends. Haichan asks Miro if it's even possible. Miro thinks it is, noting that J-Rim looks sturdy enough to handle it. She places a hand on J-Rim's face, promising to help, and tells the stunned guard to focus her mind, urging her to look carefully at what's about to happen. Her eyes glow with a borrowed, otherworldly power, and in a flash of brilliant light, the calamity is gone. Haichan lands, the borrowed energy already fading. He turns, his expression grim and determined. J-Rim collapses, trying to process the impossible sight. She saw them, human souls pouring out of the monster. She looks at Haichan, demanding to know what he's been doing. He tells her this is the true nature of a calamity, a secret that the world wasn't just ignorant of, but actively chose to ignore. As she struggles with this new reality, he offers to explain everything, and with a heavy heart, he asks for her help. We flash back to a different time, a hand opening a hospital door. J-Rim finds a younger Haichan packing his things. She calls out his name, her voice filled with concern. He turns, his expression unreadable. She confronts him, asking who he is. The doctor's diagnosis is simple: amnesia. A man explains he was unconscious for 2 years, with no memory of his own name. J-Rim questions why his powers haven't healed him, but the man reminds her that the nature of their abilities is still a mystery, a truth that leaves her visibly shaken. He asks if she knows the boy, since they're from the same area. She dismisses it, saying they're just classmates. Nothing more. But she grabs him, unable to believe he doesn't remember her at all. Her eyes plead with him to remember their past. Haichan's narration explains that all guards awaken after a disaster. He recalls the Gwangju incident of 2025, a day of unimaginable loss. And among the survivors, only he and J-Rim awakened as guards. Back in the present, he drops a flower as Miro asks if he's sure about this. He says they've shown her the truth, the choice is now hers. Miro points out that J-Rim seems to really dislike him, but Haichan believes she's not one to be blinded by emotion. He's confident in his assessment of her character, believing that even though she acts like she hates him, the truth is far more complicated. They watch as she runs off into the night. Then he immediately starts shaking Miro, asking why she opened the door. Priorities, I guess. Meanwhile, J-Rim is lost in a painful memory, a vision of herself, trapped and terrified in the rain. A younger, wounded Haichan reaches for her, begging her to survive. His desperate eyes are burned into her memory. She snaps back to reality, the past crashing down on her, and unleashes a wave of power, overwhelmed by it all. Her partner can only watch, asking if she's lost her mind. Her partner tries to calm her down, asking what's wrong, but J-Rim just brushes her off, claiming she's tired. Her partner decides to call it a day since there are no more requests. But then she asks about the Gumsan region, noting it's been quiet. She's told the entire area has been completely closed off. J-Rim is stunned as her partner speculates the sealing stone finally broke, and that only the highest-ranking teams are allowed anywhere near it. She then leans in, reminding J-Rim of the rumor she'd mentioned, the one about a mysterious figure attacking the sealing stones. She whispers that the Gumsan incident is believed to be their work, and in J-Rim's mind, the culprit has a very familiar blue-haired face. Her partner wonders why anyone would do something so insane, dismissing it as the work of some new doomsday cult. Because that's always the go-to explanation. J-Rim clenches her fist, the weight of the truth pressing down on her. She stares off into the distance, her mind made up. Later, she stands alone in the ruins of the Gumsan district. Recalling that the stone here was destroyed 9 days ago, she peers into the crater, confirming there are no new monsters. No new shards have appeared since the stone was broken. A chilling fact that seems to confirm Haichan's impossible story. Her eyes land on a broken security camera, a forgotten witness. Back in her room, she pulls the data from the camera's memory card. She sits at her desk, ready to see the unedited truth for herself, and finds the video file from the day of the incident. We flash back to Haichan telling her she's free to go. She asks how he can trust her, and he points to her expression, the same look he saw on the faces of the freed souls. He asks if she's curious about what she's missed, about the nagging feeling that she's been lied to her whole life. He explains that feeling is their identity, as the video confirms the truth. Hae-chan panics, wondering if he should just make a run for it. But he decides it's better to face Shin Jae-rim right now. He's startled as his door suddenly bursts open. Peeking out, he asks who could possibly be there, and is immediately grabbed by a very angry Jae-rim. So much for a quiet night in. She holds him by the collar, listing the districts he's visited. She's been tracking the shard appearances, their sizes, everything, and confirms that no new monsters have appeared since the stones were broken. He's stunned, asking if she really went and checked all of them. She tells him she hates him for being weak and ignorant, accusing him of being stubborn and just causing trouble. Hae-chan can only listen, his expression unreadable. But then she says that this time, she's willing to believe him. He looks up, completely taken by surprise. She's giving him one chance to convince her. Before she's forced to report everything to headquarters, Hae-chan's expression brightens, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He calmly invites her to sit down first, warning her that the explanation will be a bit long. After hearing the whole story, Jae-rim is in utter disbelief. He admits it sounds crazy, but asks if she really thinks the guards are that stupid. He argues that if the stones were the source, it couldn't have been overlooked. Jae-rim realizes his terrifying implication, that they already know. He explains the official justification for keeping the stones, acknowledging that it's a heavy burden for anyone to carry. But he admits there's still one thing he doesn't understand. Jae-rim points out a flaw in his logic, mentioning Seoul and Gwangju. She asks why the guards would lie and say those places are still dangerous. She grows frustrated, unable to reconcile the contradictions. She warns him that rumors are already spreading among the guards. He asks if she really thinks he can handle it all alone. But then a new idea begins to form. He turns to Jae-rim, a sudden realization on his face, suggesting that maybe it would be a good idea to have allies. He smiles, telling her it's time to bring things to a bigger scale, and holds up the file on the mysterious Liberation Group. We cut to the agricultural city of Jongwon as a curfew is announced. The residents hurry back to their homes, a strict routine they all follow. A man confirms all 75 residents are accounted for. Elsewhere, 2 guards complain about their boring new post. One of them just wants to go back to Daeyeon, but his superior shuts him down, reminding him that once you're sent here, there's only one way out. They stand before a ceiling stone, gossiping about the rumored stonebreaker. One of them dismisses it as just a story, but the other wonders if the culprit might have gotten greedy, and right on cue, the ceiling stone erupts with blue light. The 2 guards are thrown backward by the sudden blast. A mysterious figure lands on top of the stone. They realize with horror that the crazy greedy guy is real. A hooded figure stands before them, his face hidden by a glowing cloud. A bold fashion statement for sure. He tells them he can send them back to Daejeon. The guards charge forward, enraged by his audacity, but he just slams a glowing fist into the stone. The impact sends fractures through the ancient artifact. He calmly tells them the residents need to evacuate. One of the guards frantically calls for backup, reporting the attack. The hooded figure then asks the other guard for a small favor. He tells him to spread a rumor when he returns. The stonebreaker is real. The guard asks what his purpose is, and the figure reveals his terrifying goal: to release the disaster. Back at headquarters, a meeting of the top brass is underway. A man arrives announcing that everyone has gathered. He apologizes for his lateness, but he has an urgent report. The Busan team leader, Hwang Chogyol, acknowledges their busy schedules. He knows this must be important to bring them all together. Another leader, Baek Kyung-taek, sarcastically agrees. The man tells him to be polite, but Kyung-taek just laughs it off. The Gangneung team leader asks if the engineering manager is absent again. Apparently, some meetings are more optional than others. The Jeju team leader dismisses the man's research in Dangerous Soul, but the general manager cuts them off, saying that's irrelevant. He gets right to the point. The rumors of the Stonebreaker? Some of the leaders seem to have heard nothing about it. The general manager dismisses the idea that it's just another ghost story. He confirms that this time, the threat is very real. Chogyol wonders if this is related to those guys. The Jeju leader names the group, the Liberation Corps. She asks if this is what the meeting is really about. The room falls silent as they consider the implications. The general manager states the matter is still under investigation, but depending on how the situation develops, they may have to involve the elite guards. The term catches the other leaders completely by surprise. Kyung-taek smirks, realizing this is a serious matter indeed. He addresses the general manager directly, a knowing look in his eyes, but he's interrupted by a sudden commotion. The Jeju leader asks what's happening. They all turn their attention to the window. A subordinate rushes in, calling for his team leader. He reports an urgent request for assistance from Jongwon. The ceiling stone there is under attack at this very moment. Jae-rim explains that while data is scarce, the name is everywhere. Their stated goal is liberation from the disaster, but they remain elusive. Back at the meeting, the Busan leader decides to stay in Daejeon. He orders a secret mission to hunt down the Stonebreaker. Hae-chan realizes that if he can just contact this group, they could become his most powerful allies yet. The Jeju leader also decides to remain behind. He claims his island is secure enough to be left to others. A masked guard listens in the background, his role unclear. Jae-rim asks how he'll even find them, but Hae-chan has a simple plan. He's going to make them come to him. He'll make his presence known with no holding back. And so the rumors begin to spread like wildfire. Whispers of a figure strong enough to take on multiple guards. The stories conflict, painting a picture of a phantom. But one thing remains consistent in every account: the promise to free the world from all disasters. A new title begins to circulate through the terrified populace: the Liberator of Disasters. In another small town, a frantic evacuation is underway. A masked figure on a rooftop gives them a 30-minute warning. He even pauses his grandstanding to yell at a kid to help his grandma. What a guy. The local guards can only watch, completely outmatched. His eyes glow with a familiar blue light. He leaps down, unleashing a wave of pure power. The guards are completely stunned by his speed. He effortlessly dodges their coordinated attack. One of them lunges, screaming for his death. But the figure just catches the blade, asking for a little civility. Before blasting the guard away with a single powerful blow, the blast of energy rips through the air. The remaining guard can only stare in disbelief. He demands to know their purpose, why they're doing this. But Hae-chan just tells him he's heard it all before. His only request is for the guard to spread the word. And so the legend of the Liberator of Disasters is born. But official records show absolutely nothing on the figure. Still, the rumors are spreading like wildfire. A junior guard is reprimanded for gossiping on the job. He's told to show some respect, a classic workplace dynamic. Just then, a familiar face appears: Senior Kyung-han. He pulls the junior guard aside for a quick word. And then he calls out to Woo Hae-chan. Our boy looks up, caught completely off guard. He's told to come along as well, it's important. Their new mission takes them to Gangneung City. Jae-rim questions why they were suddenly sent here. He explains it's a stroke of luck. The Liberation Corps hasn't made a move yet, which means it's time to make some more noise. But his partner points out a flaw in the plan. Hae-chan says the suspicion will fall on him, the weak outcast. The old, I'm too pathetic to be a suspect defense. Classic. Jae-rim is still worried about him going in alone, but a new voice calls it an opportunity. They both jump, completely startled by his presence. Hae-chan's eyes widen in surprise. The man introduces himself as Guard Baek Kyung-taek, and with a disarming smile, he says he's a fan. He's heard all about the manager's favorite, and he wants to know all about this opportunity. Jae-rim's partner is stunned, realizing Hae-chan is going to Gangneung's. She explains he's never left Daejeon and was excited like a kid. Jae-rim admits she's the one who put his name in for the trip. Kyung-taek says he heard good things, but offers Hae-chan a way out. But Hae-chan immediately insists that he wants to go. He launches into a very passionate speech about his love for Gangneung. Kyung-taek seems less than convinced by this sudden enthusiasm. Just then, Jae-rim steps forward, asking if she can join them. She formally introduces herself as a member of the field team and volunteers to be part of the escort mission. Kyung-taek looks between them, questioning if the field team has time to spare. He mentions that he heard they were all completely overworked. Hae-chan and Jae-rim exchange a nervous glance, and then Kyung-taek's face lights up with a classic misunderstanding. He smiles, approving her request and telling her he likes her boldness. Both of them are completely flustered, realizing what he thinks. He walks away, telling them not to get too attached on the job. They try to protest, but he's already gone. Hae-chan immediately turns on Jae-rim, blaming her for the situation. The scene shifts to a helicopter soaring over a desolate landscape. Inside, the team is told they're 10 minutes from their destination. Hae-chan and Jae-rim whisper, confirming that Miro is safely asleep. A senior guard with glasses asks Hae-chan if he's feeling all right. He explains to another guard that it's Hae-chan's first trip. Outside, a massive blue calamity roars on the horizon. Someone tells Jae-rim to look out the window. Hae-chan stares at the ruined highway, noting the amount of debris. Jae-rim is shocked, but her partner says this is normal for Gangneung. He explains the city is unique because 2 large ceiling stones touch, and then condescendingly adds that standards have dropped, unlike elites like them. She is not amused. The red-haired guard tries to get friendly with Jae-rim, dismissing Hae-chan. She shuts him down with a look of pure disgust. A senior guard tells them to stop talking and prepare for landing. The helicopter touches down in the ruined city streets, but the designated landing spot is completely deserted. They wonder if they've even come to the right place. Hae-chan immediately senses that the energy here is all wrong. His eyes widen as he realizes the imminent danger. A massive blue creature suddenly materializes before them. It lunges straight for the unsuspecting Kyung-han, but Jae-rim leaps forward to intercept the attack. She lands a powerful blow on the spectral monster. Hae-chan rushes to make sure his friend is okay. Jae-rim can only stare, wondering what just happened. Hae-chan knows something is terribly wrong here. As more of the spectral creatures begin to appear, they're completely surrounded by the strange energy monsters. We're told that by 2025, the guards had finally brought stability, But with civilization fractured, false rumors began to spread. The government established 5 special cities as pillars of the new nation. Each one was tasked with managing the smaller towns around it. One of these was the last special city, Gangneung. As the senior guard had explained on the flight over, its unique structure allows 2 regions to overlap, and their team was called in to help with an issue with the stones. He'd assured them there would be no danger. Famous last words. But another creature attacks with blinding speed, sending Jae-rim flying backward through the air. Hae-chan realizes they're supposed to be in a safe zone. He screams for everyone to get down. He shoves the senior guard down, yelling for him to contact Gangneung. The red-haired guard leaps forward, screaming for the monster to leave Jae-rim alone. But his heroic charge is cut short as the creature swats him aside. He's sent flying, another casualty in this sudden ambush. Hae-chan can only watch in frustration, scolding the downed guard's recklessness. Jae-rim realizes they're completely outnumbered. Miro asks Hae-chan what he's going to do. The senior guard tries to fight back, but he's quickly overwhelmed. The team is scattered, trying to fend off the endless wave of creatures. Hae-chan knows he has no other choice. He grabs Jae-rim, telling her to get down, and unleashes a massive burst of blue energy from his body. The blast rips through the spectral monsters, clearing a path. But as the light fades, he sees a figure standing in the chaos. A woman with dark curly hair effortlessly cuts through the remaining creatures. She moves with a terrifying speed and precision. Jae-rim orders her subordinate to provide support. Hae-chan is stunned, wondering what just happened. He can only stare at the newcomer who just saved them all. Well, that's one way to make an entrance. With a final powerful strike, she clears the area. The energy dissipates, leaving an eerie silence. She turns, her expression calm and collected, and informs them that this area was just designated as restricted. The senior guard is baffled, asking when this happened. She casually replies that the order came down about an hour ago. She then tells them to move, offering to escort them to a safe zone. Hae-chan whispers to Jae-rim, asking who this person is. Jae-rim confirms his suspicion. This is the general team leader of Gangneung Special City, a woman known as Blue Axe Ham Na-kyung. The senior guard explains that only guards are here now. The entire city was evacuated. The sealing stone is in worse shape than they thought. Na-kyung adds that the restricted zone is expanding, and no one has a solution. As she explains their anxiety, Hae-chan notices the fractured ground beneath them. He's stunned that even this close to the stone, the area is so unstable. The senior guard then leads them into a massive, sterile building. Inside, they find their objective, the massive, glowing sealing stone of City 2. Hae-chan is shocked by the deep cracks running through the artifact. The senior guard explains the day team is leaving in a few hours. Jae-rim is stunned. They're just clocking out with the city on the verge of collapse. Union rules, I guess. But Na-kyung calmly states that she will be staying to observe. Jae-rim whispers to Hae-chan, a feeling of unease settling over her. They all stand before the glowing stone, its ominous light filling the chamber. 2 other guards inspect the damage, noting the cracks aren't from an outside force. Miro peeks out from Hae-chan's collar, asking what his plan is. He just stares at the stone, his mind racing with a new, dangerous idea. Later that night, back in their room, he begins to explain. Jae-rim is in disbelief, asking if she heard him correctly. He explains his original plan was to attack smaller cities to draw attention. But after seeing the state of the sealing stones here, he declares his new target is Gangneung itself. Jae-rim can only stare, completely horrified by his audacity. He's going to free both cities from the disaster. Miro explains that the 2 calamities are already connected, their energies intertwined. Hae-chan confirms he can feel their combined power, a strange and massive presence. Miro says that normally their power wouldn't be enough to break a stone, but this one is already weakened, and her friends are about to unite. When they do, the destruction of one stone will cause the other city to fall. She gives them a terrifying timeline, 3 to 4 weeks at most. Hae-chan sees this as their chance, but Jae-rim panics, calling him insane. He admits he knows about the Gwangju disaster, but Jae-rim reminds him he can't possibly remember it. Her eyes fill with a painful, distant memory, a flash of blood-soaked rubble and chaos, a vision of a true disaster, when she survived alone. Miro points out the obvious. The stone is too big and he's too weak, but Hae-chan insists he has a plan, that this stone is different. Jae-rim explodes, completely done with his recklessness. She questions his willingness to sacrifice thousands of lives, demanding to know how he can destroy what he doesn't understand. She accuses him of being reckless and alone. Again, her words hit him, and she declares she's against this. With a final warning, she tells him to think carefully, and leaves him alone with his half-baked plan. Miro just asks why she's so angry. Kids, am I right? Hae-chan looks at his hands, her words echoing in his mind. Reckless, overconfident, alone again. He's left wondering what really happened in his forgotten past. Later, back at the sealing stone, the local guards are on duty. One of them asks about an analysis, but is quickly shut down. An older guard brings Hae-chan a tool, looking just as confused. Another guard is already complaining about the time, eager to leave. The red-haired guard tries to rally the seniors for drinks. Haechan can only watch as they bicker about unpaid tabs. The senior guard finally snaps, lashing out at his subordinates. He screams that in Daejeon, this behavior wouldn't be tolerated. The others just mock his lack of passion for the job. He explains that most guards are forced into their positions here. Haechan is completely overwhelmed by the sheer incompetence. The red-haired guard complains he needs a break, and his senior just lets him go. The red-haired guard just walks away, ignoring his senior's call. He slips out through a side door and finds a quiet spot outside, all alone. He sighs, admitting he doesn't like the guards here either. But Miro points out their incompetence is actually an advantage. Haechan agrees, but his thoughts drift to the Gwangju disaster. He remembers Jae-rim's words, a truth he can't recall. A memory of a true disaster, one he's completely forgotten. He asks Miro if he's taking all of this too lightly. He spent his life as a nobody, hating himself, until a chance encounter with Miro changed everything. Now he wonders if he's just drunk on his new title. He realizes the places he's destroyed were once homes, and questions if he even has the right to make these choices. Miro offers her usual brand of silent, unblinking support. He shakes it off, knowing he can't stop now, when a voice calls out. It's Hamna Kyung, who recognizes him from the Daejeon team. He's startled as she asks why he's still working. She mistakes him for a student, but he reminds her he's an adult. He points out that plenty of minors serve in the field team. An awkward silence hangs between them. She asks if he's finding it difficult to work here. She wonders why someone like her would choose this post. He assumes it's a sense of duty, but she corrects him. She says she came to Gangneung because she wanted to... Revealing that this ruined city is her hometown, Haechan is completely flustered, wondering why she's still here. She asks if he has a moment, catching him off guard. She can see the worry on his face, knowing it's his first visit. She reaches out a hand, offering to show him a good spot. 5 days have passed since their arrival in Gangneung. Nakyung asks about the stone, and Haechan admits the situation is bad. He stammers, unable to reveal the true cause of its rapid decay. She leads him up a long, strenuous path, showing him an area that was a safe zone just last week. Haechan takes in the rapid, unsettling change. She pushes open a door, announcing they've arrived. He looks on, completely unsure of what to expect, and is greeted by a stunning view of the city from her favorite spot. She explains that whenever she feels overwhelmed, this view always brings her a sense of peace. She notices his troubled expression, asking if he's all right. He awkwardly compliments the scenery, trying to hide his inner turmoil. A classic move. Nakyung just offers a gentle, knowing smile. Haechan brings up her connection to the city again. She confirms she lived here until middle school, and that this place holds countless precious memories. He realizes just how deeply she loves her home. She says of course she does, it's a part of who she is, admitting that if it were destroyed, she'd be devastated, and would carry the blame for the rest of her life. Her words strike a chord deep within Haechan. She turns to him, her resolve unwavering as she vows to protect it. He looks away, the weight of his own plan pressing down on him. He grips the railing, his knuckles white. His mind is made up. Back in their room, he bows deeply, pleading for Shin Jae-rim's help. He tells her he's sure of his plan, and that time is running out. The two calamities are merging, threatening a disaster worse than Gwangju. He insists they have to act now, but she seems unconvinced by his plea. She questions his desperate rush, her voice laced with fury, reminding him this is about destroying a home, a place people love. The moment he acts, the Liberator will become an unprecedented villain. He'll be hunted by the guards, living in constant fear of being exposed. The world will see him as the madman who ruined their lives. She asks if he can truly handle that weight all by himself. Haechan looks down, admitting he knows it all sounds reckless and silly. But from the balcony, he can see the truth of the city. A flash of memory, a terrified boy who looks just like him. He says that now that he knows, he can't just let it go. He can feel the screams, the pain and anger buried deep underground. A peace built on the grief of others is bound to collapse someday. He's decided that if this is a debt that must be paid, then they should pay it in the best way they possibly can. He tells her he will take full responsibility for all the risks. Jae-rim clenches her fist, still struggling with his conviction. She dismisses the idea of resentful souls, saying she doesn't feel it. She insists they are still far too weak to deal with such a disaster, and bluntly calls his entire plan idiotic. Can't say she's wrong, but she wants to make one thing perfectly clear. The sealing stone has a limit, and a disaster is coming one way or another. She asks him one last time if he is absolutely sure about this. Haechan meets her gaze, his resolve unwavering. He confirms that he is, as a hooded figure watches from a nearby building. The observer listens, knowing the disaster will happen with or without them. He pulls out a phone, tapping out a quick message. His thumb hovers over the screen for a moment. Then he puts the device away. His part in this done. It's Baek Kyung-tik, as a woman with purple hair asks if there's anything else. He dismisses it as nothing important. While she complains, his phone never stops. Kyung-taek's expression is grim, his plan already in motion. His phone displays a photo of Hae-chan with a simple message. He's found his target. Meanwhile, back at the Gangneung headquarters, Jae-rim's partner is not impressed with the local talent. She complains about their lack of skill, but is reminded that Daejeon is just as short-staffed. On the phone with her superior, she argues about the impossible task of evacuating the city. A junior guard tries to reason with her, but she quickly shuts him down. She brings up the Gwangju disaster, a warning of what's to come. Her voice is filled with desperation, begging them not to make the same mistake again, but she's dismissed, left to fume in frustration. So much for upward communication. She tries to call Young Moon for help, but gets no answer. The weight of Hae-chan's words settles on her, filling her with a terrible anxiety. With a new resolve, she decides she can't just stand by and watch. As civilians rush home to beat the curfew, she watches from a window, her mind racing. A sudden violent memory flashes through her mind, a vision of a past tragedy, a desperate hand reaching out. She snaps back to the present, her eyes wide with terror. She knows she can't trust the guards to handle this. Her purpose is clear, to save people from the disaster, and she knows they need the power of his name. The liberator of disasters. Hae-chan smiles, his first true ally secured. That night, the local guard team assembles. They wonder why the team from Daejeon is a no-show, but a hooded figure watches from the shadows, knowing the liberator won't be enough to scare this team. Hae-chan lays out his insane plan for Jae-rim. He'll use one disaster to trigger another, a controlled demolition on a citywide scale. She questions the need to involve both cities, but he explains they're already connected. He insists they have to destroy both stones at once to save everyone. Elsewhere, a guard struggles with a control panel. The system suddenly shorts out, sparks flying as their plan is set in motion. Looks like someone failed their IT certification. The power grid shorts out, plunging the city into darkness. The local guards are stunned as the curfew begins. One of them is hit by a sudden blast of blue energy, leaving the others to fall into the shadows. A glowing blue eye is the last thing the senior guard sees. The first step of the plan: neutralize the local team. Meanwhile, Nak-young tries to get a status report. She bursts in, demanding to know who's on duty, only to find her entire team passed out from a party. Professionalism at its finest. One of them stirs, surprised to see their team leader. She scolds them for drinking on the job, but they just laugh it off, completely unconcerned. They even try to offer her a drink, missing the point entirely. Her expression hardens, her patience worn thin. She tries the radio herself, calling for City 2 to respond. But the line is dead, the connection lost. She stands alone, a growing sense of dread washing over her. Her desperate calls are met with nothing but static. She remembers Hae-chan's words telling her not to take all the blame, that a true disaster is beyond anyone's control. A quiet attempt to ease the burden he's about to place on her. But in the present, her panic only grows. A flash of red light catches her eye, and a sudden explosion sends her flying backward. She looks up, trying to see through the smoke. A figure stands on a nearby rooftop. She realizes with horror who it must be. Hae-chan knows the biggest obstacle is Ham Nak-young. He admits he's not strong enough to face her directly, so he races through the city knowing he has to act now. He knows it's not his job to deal with the general manager. That task will fall to the disaster itself. We flash back to a younger Nak-young, a survivor in a ruined city. Her father promises her that Gangneung will be their safe haven, a place where their family can finally be happy again. He reaches out, knowing the hardship she's endured, asking her to come home with him to Gangneung, but the path to safety was paved with tragedy, a memory of loss she can never forget. And in the midst of the chaos, a new power awakened. She lay among the fallen, her life hanging by a thread, until her eyes glowed blue, marking her as a guard. We see a brighter day, a time of peace. Nak-young stands as a protector, her massive axe at the ready. She had returned to protect the ones she loved. Her mother rushes to her side, overcome with relief. Nak-young touches her own face, the memory feeling so real. She sees her old home, just as her father promised. And with a bloodied smile, she knows they've made it. A promise fulfilled, a family finally home. Back in the present, that home is under siege. Nak-young desperately tries to call for backup, screaming into her radio for her useless team to wake up. But she's thrown back by a sudden blast of energy. Her radio shatters, leaving her completely alone. Another pulse of red light rips through the building, sending her flying through the air once more. She looks out at the chaos, her heart breaking for her home. Elsewhere, a pink-haired girl and a child watch the destruction. The girl confirms that Nak-young has taken the bait, and everything is going according to plan. The partner notes that it's a good thing the local guards are useless. But Miro worries if Hae-chan can handle a monster this strong. The partner admits even the blue axe will have a tough time. But she trusts that Hae-chan must have a plan. All he can do now is see it through. The calamity erupts, but it's smaller than he anticipated. He realizes this can't be the whole disaster. A part of it is still underground, connected to the other city. He understands they haven't just linked up. They've merged into something far more powerful. With no time to waste, Haechan prepares to strike. He launches himself toward the newly formed creature and forms a blade of pure blue energy. He clashes with the Calamity's massive tendril. Elsewhere, Nakyung fights a similar battle with a shard. Haechan is blown back, wondering how she makes it look so easy. Nakyung continues her relentless assault on the monster. She knows she has to use all her power to end this quickly. She desperately tries to report the situation to headquarters, declaring a full-blown disaster in City 2, but she's suddenly struck by a blast from behind. It's J-Rim, taking out the streetlights to create chaos. Nakyung is stunned by the unexpected betrayal. J-Rim moves in, a blur of red energy, and lands a devastating blow on the general manager. Nakyung barely manages to block the attack, but the force shatters her own energy weapon, sending her flying through the air, slicing through the remaining lights. She lands hard, her power flickering out, and can only look up, completely overwhelmed by the assault. Meanwhile, the Calamity roars to life in a torrent of red energy. Haechan can only offer a silent apology as he flees. Nakyung's final desperate plea crackles over the broken radio. A disaster has officially appeared in Gangneung City 2, and the Blue Axe unleashes her full power against it. She vows to destroy this thing before it takes her home. Her attack slams into the creature with incredible force. She weaves through its tendrils, a blur of motion. Her energy blade cuts through the chaos. She calls out coordinates, tracking its every move. A piece of graffiti confirms her location. She knows this area well. She realizes the core must be nearby and rushes forward. But then she sees the creature's flight path is changing. It's heading towards either a construction site or a residential zone. Not great options either way. She slices through another part of the monster, landing gracefully as she prepares her next move. She sends another wave of energy toward the beast. Floating in the air, she scans the battlefield, trying to pinpoint the location of the real threat. Elsewhere, Haechan lands silently on a rooftop. He knows the biggest risk is having to separate from his allies. He recalls his power's time limit, 6 hours at maximum output. He knows he has to finish this before his power fades. He promises J-Rim that he will succeed, no matter what, reminding her that she only gets one shot at her part of the plan. He takes off, a streak of blue light across the city. His power level is already down to 80%. He watches Nakyung's fight, hoping she'll wear herself out. Nakyung makes her decision, believing the target is the construction site, and Haechan watches her go, his own plan falling into place. Nakyung's eyes widen with a grim realization. She's found him. She gathers a massive amount of energy in her hand and unleashes it in a devastating citywide blast. The hooded figure knows he has to defend himself. He braces for the impact, a lone figure against the storm. Nakyung is stunned as he meets her attack head-on. Haechan is sent skidding backward across the rooftops. He curses, realizing just how outmatched he is. Nakyung scans the destruction, her eyes searching for her target. The resulting explosion lights up the entire district. She readies her weapon, a massive double-bladed axe. Her expression is one of pure, unyielding fury, deciding she can't afford to hold back any longer. A flash of blue light signals her next attack. She declares she's going to end this in a single blow, and launches a beam of energy with terrifying force. The two powers collide in a blinding flash. A maelstrom of red and blue light erupts. Nakyung screams, pouring everything she has into the attack. The blast carves a path of destruction through the ruins, leaving nothing but a smoking crater in its wake. The hooded figure stands in the aftermath, wondering about the disaster. He questions if she's already taken care of it. A little too optimistic, perhaps. He turns, sensing a presence right behind him, and finds Nakyung's glowing axe pressed against his throat. She recognizes the infamous liberator of disasters. She demands to know if this was his doing, and he calmly confirms it. He notes she's weakened, believing he can still win this. As he clenches his fist, she orders him to surrender. She tells him they're going to City 1, but he says that might be difficult. She asks if he truly can't grasp his position, but Haechan just warns her that City 1 is next. The threat hits Nakyung with the force of a physical blow. But as they stand off, a new energy signature appears. Nakyung looks up, wondering what she's sensing. A massive orb of power forms over the city, a second disaster. Meanwhile, an urgent text summons the Dijon team to the lobby. The senior guard shows the message to his red-haired subordinate, who insists he didn't send it, claiming he lost his pager. Yeah, sure you did. Elsewhere, the Gangneung command center is in chaos. A superior berates his team for their incompetence, ordering them to get out and count the civilians. As a massive crowd gathers at a local shelter, a text from J-Rim's partner confirms she's handling things in District 1. But as the evacuation order is given, all communications suddenly fail. The Daejeon team realizes they've lost all contact. The other guards begin to panic, demanding answers. A red light bathes the shelter as tensions rise. The civilians turn on the guards, their trust completely broken. They blame the local team for the city's collapse. Just as a new calamity appears in a flash of light, and in the chaos, two figures land among the crowd. The guards are stunned, wondering where the monster went. A man holds up a glowing insignia, a beacon in the darkness. Suddenly, a new alert flashes on every guard's device. It's an emergency level 1, the highest possible threat. The ground begins to tremble violently beneath their feet, as a massive sphere of light descends upon them all. We flash back to the plan, and its biggest problem, the civilians. Haechan explains they can't evacuate thousands on their own, so he needs a way to get them to move, and fast. J-Rim's partner argues that no one will agree to evacuate after the chaos in District 2. But Haechan is betting on two things: the incompetence of the local guards, and the fact that in a crisis, people will blindly follow their only hope for survival. To make that happen, he turns to his smallest, most powerful asset. He tells Miro that she has a very important role to play. He asks if she's ready to cause a little panic. Miro just nods, telling him to leave it to her. And with a mighty roar, she unleashes a massive wave of energy. The psychic blast ripples through the city, catching everyone off guard. An emergency alert blares through the streets, announcing a security breach. All citizens are ordered to evacuate to District 2 immediately. The Daejeon team is stunned by the sudden emergency protocol. A level 1 alert flashes across every screen in the city. From a control room, J-Rim's partner watches her handiwork. Haechan lies among the unconscious guards, surprised by Miro's sheer power. He's still dazed, unable to believe he just attacked his own comrades. His ally confirms she's taken over the system and cut off all communications. She has a minor breakdown, realizing she's now a terrorist. A very sloppy one, at that. But she knows that if Haechan fails to defeat Nakyung, this will all be for nothing. But it's not Haechan facing Nakyung. It's a hooded figure backed by a massive energy creature. The figure, revealed to be J-Rim in disguise, lunges forward. The two guards clash in a blinding flurry of blue light. Nakyung parries the attack, her expression hardening. J-Rim swings her energy blade with incredible force. The blow smashes into the pavement, sending debris flying. Nakyung stares down her opponent, her resolve unshaken. The force of their next collision sends them both reeling. J-Rim slides back, bracing for the next attack. Nakyung calls her out, saying she knew something was wrong when the lamppost started flying. Nakyung sees right through the disguise, noting a flaw in her power. She's furious, believing this upstart has seriously underestimated her, and unleashes her own overwhelming blue aura, vowing to make the Calamity Emancipator regret this day. But J-Rim knows her own weakness. Her power requires direct contact. She moves in a blur of blue light, knowing her only weapon is raw power on impact. She ducks under a massive swing from the general manager's axe, and moves with a speed that defies her supposed weakness. She slams a fist into the ground, unleashing a massive shockwave of pure energy. J-Rim admits she never underestimated the Cobalt Axe, and warns her to do the same. Nakyung's eyes narrow. She just needs one clean hit. Elsewhere, J-Rim's partner explains Haechan's two biggest problems. He can't recharge without Miro, and he has no long-range attacks. His fighting style isn't about skill, but about making contact. While other guards manifest and explode their power, Haechan's energy transfers instantly upon touch, resulting in a devastating implosion of force. We see this principle in action as J-Rim and Nakyung clash. A useful trick against monsters, but against a master of manifestation, things get a lot more complicated. J-Rim darts between Nakyung's energy blades. Her masked face is a picture of pure focus. Nakyung knows she just needs to land a single blow. Just one solid hit is all it will take. She swings her axe in a brilliant flash of light. J-Rim is sent flying back by the force of the attack. But Nakyung is faster, grabbing her opponent's arm. And in a flash, the general manager makes contact. A blast of energy sends the hooded figure flying. Nakyung stares at her hand, feeling the strange power. The disguised J-Rim realizes her energy is already half gone. She knows Nakyung is also hurt, but she'll run out of power first. Nakyung changes her mind, deciding to take her opponent alive. Mostly, J-Rim grits her teeth, knowing she has to manifest her energy. She darts forward in a blur of motion, throwing a punch charged with raw power. But Nakyung counters with a slash of her own. J-Rim fires a small dart of energy, a desperate move. She uses the momentum to brace for another attack. The resulting explosion rocks the entire area. Their powers clash again, shattering the ground beneath them. Nakyung's expression is one of pure, unyielding focus. The two trade blows, moving with impossible speed. J-Rim curses her disadvantage and leaps away. She takes a breath, trying to recall her own advice to Haechan, a memory of their training, telling him to relax his body. She clenches her fist, trying to feel the flow of energy. Recalling the lesson on how to regulate its power, she steels her resolve, knowing she can do this, and leaps away from another of Nakyung's devastating attacks. The memory continues. Collect the energy into a single point, then expel it from the body with incredible force. Her eyes glow, her focus absolute. She fires a concentrated beam, her first real ranged attack. But the energy in her hand becomes unstable, so much for a smooth first try. She struggles to control the raw, untamed power. The blast collides with Nakyung's own attack, and the backlash sends J-Rim reeling in pain. Nakyung admits she underestimated her opponent. The way it's wielded, its very essence, it's different. She demands to know what kind of creature she's fighting. But J-Rim can only curse her own failure. We flash back to Haichan's training, as Miro asks if he'll try again. He asks why Miro can't use her own abilities. She quickly corrects him, saying she can use her powers just fine. Just not in the same way as a guard. And yes, that's Miro with muscles. She explains her power can't be released outwards. It's trapped inside her body like a bouncy ball. She admits she's not really human anyway, but something closer to a calamity. Back in the present, J-Rim dismisses the thought. She knows this fight is about to end, but Miro's words echo in her mind. Haichan is special. A terrifying thought begins to form. What if he can handle her power because he's just like her? The realization hits her with the force of Nakyung's attack. She closes her eyes, her resolve hardening. She remembers her own advice. Follow the flow of power. She focuses, feeling the energy within her, imagining it as a stream of water, collecting every scattered piece. She consolidates it into a single point and prepares to release it all at once. She unleashes a concentrated blast of pure power. Nakyung is completely caught off guard by the sudden attack. The beam of energy is perfectly focused. She has no time to react to the impossible sight. The resulting explosion engulfs the entire street. Nakyung hits the pavement, defeated and bleeding. Nakyung can't process what just hit her. She looks up at the shadowy figure, demanding to know what it is. The figure simply clenches a fist, raw power swirling. And with dawning horror, Nakyung identifies it as a calamity. A torrent of blue energy erupts from the masked fighter. He announces himself as the Calamity Emancipator. Elsewhere, Miro watches the chaos with a worried expression. She senses a change in Haichan, wondering if his plan is working. We flash back to that plan and Miro's very specific cue. Haichan had told her to get as big as possible, but stay light. Her only job was to scare everyone, not to hurt them. He'd left the control center in the hands of J-Rim's partner. Dismissing the other guards as dead weight, he squeezed Miro's hand. He'd asked if she was getting nervous. She absolutely was, but he reassured her with a gentle pat on the head, promising to join them after he defeated Nakyung. He just needed her to hang in there until then. Back in the present, Miro unleashes a terrifying psychic roar. The civilians panic, rushing towards the supposed safe zone. The crowd swarms the local guards, demanding answers. But with communications down, they're completely in the dark. One of them argues they can't risk letting anyone in. Just then, J-Rim's partner arrives, carrying the unconscious guards. She drops them at the feet of the local team, feigning confusion. The local guard is stunned, and the partner plays dumb about the alert. She orders them to get the civilians to safety immediately. But they refuse, citing their low rank and lack of authority. Bureaucracy at its finest. She reminds them that backup is hours away and time is running out. The local guard points to Miro, still unsure of the situation. So Miro gives them another gentle, terrifying nudge. The psychic blast sends the local guards flying. J-Rim's partner shouts, urging everyone to get the civilians away from the monster. But just then, the ground begins to crack with a new energy. A strange blue light erupts from the pavement. She can only stare in disbelief at the impossible sight. As a massive creature of pure energy bursts forth, even Miro seems surprised by what's happening. A figure lands silently on the newly formed creature, and with a single touch, he takes control of Miro's power. The guards recognize the signature, a power known as the Ivory Bow. A new player has just entered the game. It's Jae-won-yo, one of the top guards in the country. He looks down at Miro, questioning if she's a calamity. His power wraps around the little furball, squeezing her in a vice-like grip. He watches calmly as his attack connects. Miro lets out a pained burst of energy. Jae-won is surprised as she complains that it hurts. Apparently, calamities are supposed to be tougher. He realizes this creature is strong, but not like a normal monster. He decides to capture it for study, as Miro calls out for Haichan. With a final apology, she vanishes in a flash of light, leaving Jae-won standing on the dissipating energy vines. He looks around, wondering where his target went. The other guards can only murmur in awe of his power. J-Rim's partner is completely starstruck. Her inner fangirl is having a moment. A very, very bad moment to have a moment. She snaps out of it, trying to regain her composure. Jae-won-yo introduces himself as the head administrator of Jeju. He asks why District 1 is in chaos and demands to know where Nakyung is. But as the ground rumbles again, they realize they've lost all contact. J-Rim's partner suggests evacuating the residents to District 2. She argues they can't just leave the civilians in this chaos, but she flinches under Jae-won-yo's cold, intense gaze. He ignores her question, asking for the nearest town instead. But before the local guard can explain the problem, Jae-won unleashes a massive torrent of his own power. The energy erupts from the ground surrounding everyone. A massive canopy of glowing vines forms high above them. J-Rim's partner realizes this barrier will only last a few hours. Jaewon explains it will keep any shards away from them. His order is simple: get the people to safety now. A local guard can only stare, completely overwhelmed by his power. Elsewhere, Haechan feels the energy surge, wondering why Jaewon is here. The local guard confirms that Jaewon has secured the route, and with a new path cleared, the evacuation finally begins. One of the guards asks if they should check on the sealing stone, but no one knows who was on duty since they were all drinking. Peak professionalism right there. A guard gets his partner's attention, pointing something out. He calls out to Haechan, who's hiding just out of sight. The guard reports that no one was stationed at the District 1 stone. He tries to make excuses, but Jaewon's expression is unreadable. He asks for confirmation. The post was completely abandoned. J-Rim's partner whispers to Haechan, asking about Nak-young. He explains that Jaewon was in Daejeon and came as soon as he heard the call. He didn't even wait for official orders, arriving in less than an hour. She marvels at the power of the ivory bow. She's relieved he's here, but Haechan knows this just means he'll be distracted. She realizes with a sinking feeling that he's still going through with the plan. He confirms it's too late to stop, his own power mending his wounds. She notes that he seems different now. His very energy has changed. He knows that before he can finish his mission, he has to clear any remaining obstacles in his way. A guard tries to get a status update on the team leaders, but Jae-won-yo is more concerned with why they're evacuating at all. The other guards panic, desperately asking about Nak-young. Jaewon decides to go to the sealing stone himself. Just then, a battered Haechan stumbles into the scene. Jaewon has no idea who this kid is, as another guard identifies him. Haechan rushes forward, feigning confusion about the chaos. He gives his partner a subtle wink, asking why he was in the control center. She immediately understands they need a cover story, and fast. She claps her hands, feigning a sudden realization, claiming she simply forgot him there while moving the other guards. What a convenient memory lapse. She even gives him a smack, calling him weak for passing out. He's a little taken aback by her very enthusiastic performance. Her acting is so terrible he's worried she'll blow their cover. But somehow the local guards seem to be buying it completely. He quickly changes the subject, asking about the glowing vines, and what's happening in District 2 with the calamity. He then turns, feigning shock as he recognizes Jaewon-yo, and formally introduces himself as a guard from Daejeon. Jaewon wants to know everything he saw in District 2. He presses for information, his gaze cold and intense. So Haechan begins to spin his fabricated tale, claiming he was heading back to District 2 all by himself. When the ground suddenly began to shake violently beneath him, he puts on his best, terrified survivor expression. He says he was caught in the collapse before he could get a good look. His partner confirms the story, as Jaewon asks if it was a calamity. Haechan says it looked like one, but then adds a crucial detail. He claims Nak-young was running straight for it, right through the city center. Jaewon-yo considers this, his expression unreadable. He decides to check on the District 1 stone himself, and tells Haechan to come with him. J-Rim's partner argues that if it were a real calamity, the destruction would be far worse. But Jaewon seems to have already made up his mind. He tells them he'll be back after assessing the situation in District 2. And with a single leap, he's gone, leaving them in the eerie blue light. Haechan stumbles and his ally quickly catches him. He whispers that her acting was terrible, and she tells him to shut up. She covers for him, telling the local guard he's just the weak runt of the pack. What a great friend. She quietly asks if the plan is still on track, and Haechan confirms it is. He tells her not to worry about Miro, explaining they have an emergency rendezvous point. The local guard dismisses him as dead weight, and Haechan just agrees. As he walks away, his partner calls out his name. She tells him to be careful out there. He just offers a confident grin, telling her the same. Elsewhere, the red-haired guard tries to drag his senior away. He argues it's not their job to check the seal, especially with the local team being so useless. He panics, realizing Haechan and J-Rim are still missing. The senior guard insists J-Rim can handle herself, but he finally puts his foot down, deciding to go look for them himself. The red-haired guard is stunned by this sudden burst of courage. He reluctantly follows, and the two race off into the chaos. Jaewon-yo lands silently on one of his glowing vines. He looks down at the disaster, noting it's smaller than he expected, but it's far too large to be a simple shard. He considers the terrifying possibility that this is a true calamity. Just then, a flash of light in the distance catches his eye. He leaps toward the source only to find a defeated Ham Nak-young. He rushes to her side, checking her condition. He finds her alive but unconscious. A blinking flashlight catches his eye, a deliberate signal. He's completely baffled by the scene before him. But he's not alone in the ruins for long. He senses a new presence, calling out to 4 unseen figures. The ground cracks with a familiar blue energy. He demands that they show themselves. A single foot steps out from the shadows, and 4 mysterious figures emerge from the darkness. Looks like the welcoming committee has arrived. They stand in silence, their faces hidden. But their intentions are clear, as Jae-won-yo prepares for another fight. Elsewhere, Hae-chan flexes his hand, feeling the lingering power. Miro sits alone, thinking Jae-won's power was on another level. She notes his aura is different from Hae-chan's, just as a hand grabs her head. It's Hae-chan, who's found her at their rendezvous point. She leaps into his arms, but he tells her to cut the cute act. She apologizes, saying she did her best while he was gone. He tells her not to cry, and she complains that he's being cold. But she realizes something has changed about him. He dangles her by her clothes, saying he'll explain everything later. Right now, he needs her power to find J-Rim. He reaches out his hand, ready to finish what they started. She takes it, and he's immediately engulfed in blue light. The raw energy swirls around him in a powerful vortex. Miro stumbles back, stunned by the sheer force of his transformation. A mask of blue flame forms over his face as he prepares to move out. Meanwhile, J-Rim's partner uses a keycard to access a secure facility. She enters a new control room, noting the different security system. Recalling that this district's surveillance is remote, making it a pain to check manually. She explains that District 1 is different, as the security in District 2 was turned off for convenience, a fact that doesn't exactly inspire confidence in their procedures. With the system deactivated, they step into the main chamber. They find the sealing stone completely intact. She wonders what kind of creature could have appeared without a full breach. We flash back to Hae-chan's request to shut down the security. He needed to buy as much time as possible to destroy the stone. His partner asks what he's so worried about getting in his way. And he confirms his biggest obstacle is the ivory bow. If Jae-won-yo returns before the job is done, the entire plan fails. Back in the present, she reports that the stone is secure. A voice on the radio confirms the civilians are safe in the tunnel. She mutters about their useless colleague and tries to reach command. A guard reports in, saying the power is back and all is well. He complains about being called out for a false alarm. Just as the doors behind them slam shut with a deafening crash, she remembers the plan: pretend to fight, then lose convincingly. Hae-chan's voiceover admits that faking a loss is harder than it looks. But his partner has a different idea. She tells him with a grin that he won't have to fake it. As Hae-chan smashes the control panel, cutting them off completely, she powers up, telling the other guard to get ready to fight. The poor guy is completely baffled by the sudden turn of events. A masked Hae-chan leaps into the room, ready for a fight. He tells the stunned guard not to move, and with a chilling smile promises to make it quick. Elsewhere, backup forces assemble, ready to move on command. Young Moon asks for an update, but there's been no word from Gangneung. A tech confirms all communications are down, which a superior dismisses as typical for the area. She argues that they ignored the warnings from Gwangju. Young Moon's subordinate realizes J-Rim's fears were justified. Just then, another guard rushes in with an urgent report. It's not the chief of staff, it's the elite guards. Young Moon grabs him, demanding to know why they've been deployed. A squad of masked figures marches through the halls, their presence ominous. Their leader reports they're 10 minutes from Gangneung on a level 2 security matter. And with a chilling announcement, they declare they're taking command. He asks for their cooperation, a request that is clearly not optional. Meanwhile, in Gangneung, the local control room is in chaos. The two on duty realize their colleagues are off drinking somewhere. Great time for a party. Just as the senior guard and his red-haired partner arrive on the scene, the local guard is surprised to see them, asking who they are. The senior guard introduces himself and asks for a status update. But he quickly realizes the entire system has been shut down. He pushes past the local team to get to the console, but they try to stop him, saying outsiders have no business here. The senior guard dismisses their concerns, trying to take control. The local guard grows angry, questioning his authority. He accuses them of not caring about the city's fate, and just using this disaster as a chance to escape. The senior guard fires back, reminding him of his duty as a guard, a word that the local guard finds completely laughable. He argues that Gangneung is nothing like the well-funded Daejeon, and that no one here feels a sense of duty without proper support. The senior guard is stunned as the local guard's resentment boils over. He lays out the harsh reality of their understaffed, under-resourced post, revealing that headquarters has essentially abandoned them. A narration explains that the guards are a fragile organization, barely 5 years old, and the further you get from the capital, the more things fall apart. The narration explains the guard organization is a fragile structure, but the red-haired guard interrupts, his fist clenched. The senior guard reports the system just overloaded on its own. He asks his partner if he can get it back online. The red-haired guard agrees, tapping away at the keyboard. And just like that, the main screens flicker back to life. He explains they can check the main city cameras now. The senior guard is relieved they at least have eyes on the stone. He pulls up the feed, his expression tense, and is stunned to see J-Rim and her partner on screen. The red-haired guard is relieved, assuming Hae-chan also escaped. A local guard confirms the team at the stone reports all is well. The red-haired guard is ready to call it a day. Mission accomplished, I guess. But the senior guard watches the screen, a feeling of unease. He notices they're deliberately avoiding the entrance. He frantically orders his partner to pull up another camera angle. Their faces are a mask of pure shock. The senior guard can't believe what he's seeing. A masked figure with a flaming blue sword leaps into view. J-Rim's partner stands her ground, telling him not to move. The figure just smiles, promising to make it painless. And with a single swipe, he sends the other guard flying. He stands over the unconscious body, his work done. J-Rim's partner is stunned, wondering if this is really Haichan. She can't believe the person she knows could become this. He whispers for her to play along and pretend to be unconscious. She touches the wall, feeling the change in his very presence. As she lies on the floor, she knows this isn't the Haichan she knew. But the strangest part is his energy. It's not a guard's. It's something else entirely, wild and untamed. She realizes his power feels just like a calamity's. Haichan just sighs, telling Miro it's time to get this over with, and unleashes a massive wave of blue energy. Back in the control room, the senior guard watches in horror. The local guards panic, deciding it's time to make a run for it. They abandon their posts, leaving the Daejeon team behind. So much for a sense of duty. The red-haired guard asks his senior what they should do. The senior guard grits his teeth, his mind made up. He tells his partner to get to safety and call for backup. He declares he's going after J-Rim, refusing to leave her. His partner questions how he'll even manage that. But the senior guard insists he has field experience too. And with a final look back, he heads into the chaos. Elsewhere, Jae-won-yo is surrounded by his own power. He looks at the four figures, confirming his senses were right. He identifies 3 of them as combat agents. A close-up on one of the mysterious attackers. Jae-won decides it doesn't matter how many there are. 2 of the figures immediately charge forward. Jae-hwan-yo is surrounded by his glowing vines. He slams his hand down, unleashing a wave of power. One of the attackers leaps over a blast of energy. A close-up of a glowing insignia on their uniform. The battle rages, a blur of blue light and motion. Jae-hwan-yo blocks an attack with a massive energy sword. He swings his weapon with incredible force. He slams his hand into the ground again, sending pillars of energy erupting from the pavement. He acknowledges that they're not just amateurs, and decides there's no need to hold back any longer. Jae-won admits he thought destroying 1 seal would be a miracle. Back in the chamber, Haichan places a hand on the second stone. He knows things didn't go to plan, but he got lucky. The civilians are safe, and Jae-won is busy with other matters. So he throws a punch, channeling all his power. The final obstacle is right in front of him. His focus is absolute, his purpose clear. Elsewhere, Jae-won-yo is still locked in combat. He's caught off guard by a sudden flash of light. As the first cracks begin to spread across the stone, Haichan's mind races, questioning what he's even doing. He remembers his dream, to be a great guard, just like Young Moon. But now he looks at what he's become. The life he wanted is over, shattered with a single blow. His ally lies on the floor, playing her part. But even as she feigns unconsciousness, she knows. This is the point of no return. He really knows how to make an exit. A desperate voice cries out from the stone, pleading for help. Another joins in, telling him they're right here. Dark tendrils of sorrow wrap around him, the voices of children lost. A ghostly hand reaches out from the glowing cracks, and his own fist meets it in the ethereal plane. His eyes glow from behind the mask of blue flame. The countless souls trapped within cry out for their release. A single desperate plea cuts through the chaos. A voice calls him friend as the core glows with blinding light. Miro's voice echoes in his mind, asking if he can feel it too. He clenches his fist, gathering the last of his power. And with a final deafening smash, he shatters the stone. J-Rim's partner can only stare in absolute shock. A final, blinding flash of blue energy erupts. The senior guard arrives just in time to be blown off his feet. But the red-haired guard catches him, telling him that's enough. Haichan can feel the raw power coursing through him. The red-haired guard agrees, saying that's enough for now. Well, that's an unexpected betrayal. The senior guard can only stare in utter disbelief. Elsewhere, Jae-won-yo unleashes another massive attack, but he stops. Sensing the sudden shift in the city's energy, the entire district rumbles as a new disaster is born. The red-haired guard tells Jae-hwan their work here is done. Jae-won tries to stop them, but is thrown back by a blast. The traitor warns him he has bigger things to worry about now. Jae-won demands to know who they are and what they're after. But the red-haired guard just smirks, saying he already knows. He confirms Jae-won knows exactly who they work for. As the ground cracks, the other figures begin their retreat. A subordinate tries to pull Jae-hwan away from the chaos. He argues they need to hold the line, but is told they'll die if they stay. A massive creature of pure energy rises from the ruins, and the city is engulfed in a blinding, terrifying light. The senior guard stumbles back, his partner standing over him. The partner urges him to run, but the senior guard is frozen. Haichan appears, tossing him the unconscious body of J-Rim's partner. He stands before them, his head wreathed in blue flame, identifying the new threat. He realizes the calamity from District 2 has been absorbed, creating a monster far larger than he ever imagined. His original plan was to release it and fight alongside the guards. But seeing its true power, he knows that plan was far too naive. He looks out at the chaos, realizing things are different now, and the ground cracks with a final devastating surge of power. A dome of raw power engulfs the entire city. A maelstrom of red and blue energy rips through the sky. Haechan knows he's not alone because right now, the legendary Ivory Bow is here. Jaewon worries about his dwindling power, hoping the civilians are safe. Most have escaped District 1, but they're still in the line of fire. He knows he has to hold the line when Haechan calls his name. Jaewon turns as Haechan offers a very poorly timed introduction. The masked figure steps forward, his presence undeniable, and Jaewon realizes this entire disaster is his fault. Haechan dismisses his questions, saying he wouldn't understand, arguing it's pointless to explain to someone who won't listen. Jaewon's power lashes out, binding Haechan in energy vines. He declares the Calamity Emancipator is under arrest, seems a little premature. But Haechan warns him he's wasting precious time, and shatters the restraints with a surge of his own power. Jaewon is stunned as Haechan points to their real priority. He explains they have to stop the Calamity before it fully emerges. He tells Jaewon they must destroy the core now while it's exposed. Jaewon questions his motive, but Haechan clarifies the terms. He's not helping Jaewon. Jaewon is helping him. Because true emancipation, he explains, is setting the souls free for good. He asks the top-ranked guard what his choice will be. Jaewon considers the impossible proposition. As the massive calamity continues to grow before them, he makes his decision, gathering his power, and unleashes the full force of the Ivory Bow. The energy pillars slam into the creature's core, encasing the massive energy source in a cage of glowing vines. He tells Haechan that he'll clear a path, and from behind the mask, Haechan offers a confident smile. Jaewon-yo unleashes a torrent of glowing vines, creating a path straight to the Calamity's core. The monster's tendrils lash out in a violent frenzy, and Haechan races forward, a blur of blue against the chaos. He leaps through the air, dodging the creature's massive limbs, gathering all his power into a single glowing hand. He unleashes a concentrated blast of pure energy. The masked figure prepares for the devastating impact. His attack rips through the Calamity's defenses, and he smashes through another tendril with ease. He extends his hand, ready for the next strike, and slams into the monster's defenses once more. Jaewon-yo can only watch as Haechan's power rages. Elsewhere, the senior guard helps Jae-rim's partner to her feet. She asks what's happening, still dazed from the attack. The red-haired traitor carries the unconscious Jae-rim, asking if she's okay. The senior guard rushes over, relieved to see them both, but the traitor just tells him to stay back. So much for a touching reunion. Jae-rim's partner asks about the senior guard who went after them. She's stunned to see him, and he tells her to be quiet. The traitor asks where Haechan is, his expression unreadable. She realizes with dawning horror that the senior guard is missing, and her face fills with a terrible, unspoken dread. Back in the fight, Haechan's power continues to flare. He fires another massive beam of energy at the core. The blast connects, sending shockwaves through the monster. He soars through the air, dodging the falling debris. Jaewon-yo is stunned by the raw power he's witnessing. Haechan lands before the massive, pulsating core, and raises his hand for the final decisive blow. He launches himself through the air, a comet of blue flame. The city below is rocked by the sheer force of their battle. Haechan grits his teeth, feeling the monster's focus shift. He realizes the Calamity knows he's the real threat here. He gives Miro a new insane order, hit him with all her power. She protests, knowing his body can't handle that kind of surge. But he tells her not to worry. They have bigger problems right now. He begins to gather all the scattered energy around him, concentrating it all into a single explosive point. He forms a massive blade of pure, untamed power, and unleashes it in a devastating, sweeping arc. We flash back to his training, a lesson in controlled chaos. Looks like he actually paid attention for once. His attack rips through the Calamity's defenses. He roars, pouring every ounce of his will into the strike. The resulting explosion lights up the entire battlefield. He remembers the core of the technique, to push himself beyond his limits. He slams his fist forward, channeling the raw energy. His attack connects with the creature's core. He kicks off the monster's hide, launching himself higher. A massive phoenix of blue energy forms around him. He raises his hands for the final, shattering blow, and brings it down with the force of a falling star. The Calamity's core begins to crack and splinter. He unleashes another powerful blast for good measure. He stands before the weakened core, its light beginning to fade. He gathers his power for one last decisive strike, and unleashes a torrent of blue energy straight at his target. Miro floats beside him, her job now done. The two powers collide in a final blinding explosion. A maelstrom of red and blue light consumes the monster. The masked figure unleashes a torrent of blue flame. He lands amidst the chaos, his power still raging. Jaewon struggles to hold the line, realizing he can't protect him forever. The Calamity is just too massive, too powerful to contain. but a new voice calls out, telling the monster to calm down. He stands before the beast, insisting he's only here to help. Hee-chan falls to his knees, trying to reason with the souls within. The Calamity's attack slows, and Jae-won is completely baffled. The newcomer continues his plea, saying he knows its pain. Hae-chan promises to give them the freedom they've been denied, but the newcomer's eyes are filled with terror. He sees a villain, not a savior. A narration explains that without Hae-chan's actions, thousands would have died, but it questions his methods, releasing a disaster just to destroy it, and wonders if he's truly having a conversation with the Calamity. He tells the soul within to look into his eyes, and understand that he is on its side, a close-up of his glowing, determined gaze. The Calamity lashes out, and Hae-chan recognizes the boy it's targeting. It's Kyung-han. He can't believe his friend is here, at the worst possible moment. Talk about bad timing. A massive tendril crashes down, but is met by a surge of blue energy. Jae-won-yo leaps through the air, trying to intervene. He looks down at the chaos unfolding below. Kyung-han is trapped in the center of the destruction. Jae-won reaches out, a desperate attempt to save him. Hae-chan screams, his rage echoing through the battlefield. Kyung-han looks up from the ground, completely terrified. He sees the one who just saved his life. A massive, blob-like Miro has formed a shield around him. Her body morphs into a giant, powerful fist, and clashes with the Calamity as Hae-chan screams her name. Miro checks on Kyung-han, asking if he's hurt. He's completely stunned that the giant blob can talk. Miro launches herself away from him with a mighty leap. She tells him to get down as she intercepts another attack. Hae-chan realizes the Calamity is now targeting Miro directly. A hand suddenly grabs his and he flinches. It's Kyung-han, pulling him back, pleading for him to save them. Miro crashes to the ground, taking the full force of the blow. The Calamity's tendril sweeps across the battlefield. Miro dodges, carrying the terrified Kyung-han to safety. Just then, Jae-rim's partner swoops in to grab him. She confirms she's safe as Miro shrinks back to her usual size. Kyung-han is still freaking out about the talking cloud. His partner tries to play it cool, but her nervous expression says it all. Busted. She looks toward Hae-chan, wondering if he's all right. Elsewhere, Baek Kyung-taek watches the chaos, thinking about the furball he just saw. He recalls it appearing from the Liberator's clothes, questioning if it's a special power, but he can't understand why the guard's greatest enemy would save one of them. His subordinate approaches, handing him a requested file. She tells him she's noticed something strange in the reports. Despite all the attacks near Daejeon, there hasn't been a single casualty. Some witnesses even claim the Liberator deliberately stalled to allow for evacuations. But the biggest question is why he destroys every calamity he awakens. Kyung-taek's eye twitches, a strange connection forming. He hears the voices from within the calamity, begging for release. The core cracks as he struggles against their pleas. He's overwhelmed by the voices, the disaster raging within him. He tries to contain it, but his power isn't enough. Hae-chan watches, knowing Kyung-taek can't hold on for much longer. The core shatters as Kyung-taek is thrown back by the blast. He knows he can't get to Miro right now. He has to finish this with what little power he has left. The calamity's tendril slams down with incredible force, throwing Kyung-taek to the ground in a flash of light. Miro can only watch from her hiding spot, completely helpless. Hae-chan steels himself, promising it won't take long. He unleashes a final, desperate surge of power, pouring everything he has into the monster's core. As his friends and Jae-won-yo look on from afar, a voice from within the calamity pleads for Jae-hwan's help. But the souls within reach for their true savior. A gentle touch offers them the peace they've been denied. Hae-chan roars, his power flaring with their combined will. He strikes the core one last time, and the world erupts in a blinding flash of blue light. The aftermath is a scene of utter devastation. Hae-chan collapses against a bus, battered and bleeding. The flame mask flickers as he realizes his mistake. The calamity's core begins to crack and reform. He was so close, but it wasn't enough to finish the job. He knows Jae-won is at his limit, and he has to get to Miro. He's lost so much power, his body is starting to fail him. Just as he wonders what to do, a piece of cloth flies past. A massive slash of blue energy cuts through the chaos, and a new figure lands on the battlefield. His presence is calm but undeniably powerful. Hae-chan's mask shatters, revealing his shocked expression. He recognizes the uniform of the legendary elite guard. Their leader reports in, announcing they're taking over. Guess the B-team's shift is over, and his subordinates immediately unleash their own attack. The elite guard leaps into action, unleashing a massive wave of energy. He lands with impossible speed, and launches himself toward the weakened calamity. Another member reports the target is on the verge of total collapse. His targeting system locks onto its final weakness. A sniper confirms the coordinates, ready to fire on command. He unleashes a single, perfectly aimed shot, and the calamity's core shatters in a blinding flash. So much for a dramatic final boss fight. Jae-won-yo can only watch, believing this is the end of Gangnam. But the elite guard leader tells his subordinate to stand down, cryptically adding that there are many ways to define an end. as the city is consumed by a final cleansing light, and the freed souls ascend, leaving Haichan alone in the ruins. The elite guard leader approaches, finally face to face with the infamous liberator. He questions why someone from Daejeon would do this, ordering Haichan to come with them. Haichan notes that the elite guards actually came, surprised they're not just a myth. He clutches his side, knowing he has to escape but is far too weak. His healing has slowed, and the newcomers question if he even knows who they are. The leader dismisses him as a child based on his attitude, but Haichan just smirks, refusing to go down without a fight. The leader points out the obvious. Our boy is completely spent. He warns him not to resist, as his orders are to bring him in alive, but his subordinate stops him, wanting to ask something first. He steps forward, recalling how Haichan spoke to the Calamity. He's sure he saw the monster understand his words. Haichan stays silent, his secret on the verge of being exposed. The subordinate has a million questions, but one stands out above the rest. He looks Haichan in the eye, demanding to know the truth. He asks what his real motive is for destroying the stones. But the leader cuts him off, declaring the interrogation is over. The elite guards close in, their leader naming the infamous liberator. Jae-won-yo reads him his rights, warning him this won't be a pleasant trip. Haichan panics, his mind racing for a way out. He makes a desperate move, screaming for them to clear a path, and Miro suddenly expands, swallowing him whole in a flash of light. The blob just sits there, a perfect picture of innocence. The guards are stunned as their target makes a very creative escape. But the leader stops Jae-won, saying they won't get far in that condition. He insists their first priority is to stabilize the city. Jae-won argues that's a job for the local team, not them. He flinches as the leader reminds him of their very specific jurisdiction, asserting that Jae-won's authority as a proxy is limited, and with a commanding presence, he warns him not to overstep. Jae-won can only look on, his pride clearly wounded. The leader addresses him by his title, a subtle but effective power play. Elsewhere, Haichan bursts out of Miro, finally able to breathe. He thanks his companion as she bounces around, checking if he's okay. He climbs onto her, saying he's fine now that he's recharged. What a weird way to get a power-up. He notes his wounds are healing faster, and his durability has increased. They look out over the ruined city, now quiet and free from calamities. But Haichan is still struggling with the weight of his actions. Miro senses something, telling him it's not over yet. He turns, realizing they're being followed. He wants to fight, but Miro warns him he's still too injured. He argues they can't just let their pursuers follow them. But then he pauses, sensing a familiar presence. The elite guards are closing in fast. The leader raises a hand, ordering them to halt, as two new figures appear, blocking their path. A woman with curly red hair steps forward, her expression unreadable. Nakyung's eyes blink open, her mind hazy. She finds herself trapped within glowing blue vines. It's Jae-won-yo who explains he came after her Mayday call. She's confused, with no memory of sending a distress signal. Her eyes widen as she realizes the terrible implications. The entire city, both districts, has been completely annihilated. Jae-won explains they tried their best to stop it, but she wasn't strong enough to save her home. The weight of her failure crashes down on her. The city lies in ruins, a monument to her loss. Elsewhere, a young man with brown hair is in a training session. He cuts through a spectral creature with a blade of light, but another one lunges forward, relentless and fast. He unleashes a blast of his own blue power, effortlessly dispatching the creatures around him. He stands in the aftermath, the room lit by red flashes. His expression is one of pure, unyielding frustration. He slams his foot down, angry at his own weakness. He's surrounded by the remnants of his failed test. He reaches out, his power swirling around him, and cuts through the last of the spectral monsters. He lands softly, his training session seemingly over. He curses, realizing he's made no progress at all. Relatable content for anyone who's ever been to the gym. The lights flicker as a new figure enters the room. A voice tells him he's getting somewhere, but he knows it's a lie. He refuses to give up, determined to figure something out. Just as the R&D Chief of Staff, Gyeongto Bayek, is interrupted, he scolds his subordinate for barging in during his tests. But she insists the news from Gangnung is urgent. He snatches the device, annoyed at the distraction. He's focused on something more important, neo-humans. He demands the entire project file, but his team is confused. He shows them the tablet, pointing to the images of Haichan. Young Moon flinches, realizing the connection. He's certain this is the power from their subject, number 315. He declares the project wasn't a failure, they just got it wrong. Gyeongto grins, realizing this could be the discovery of the century. He orders them to get every file on the project immediately. But his subordinate tells him that won't be possible. All data regarding the Neo-Human project was lost. Gyeongto can only stare, completely stunned. His subordinate reminds him of an incident from last year. He'd been told not to worry since the data was being tossed anyway. Gyeongto remembers and his frustration boils over. He lashes out, furious at his own subordinate. A healthy work environment, this is not. He screams that they should have restored the data. The subordinate just takes the abuse, used to this routine. As Gyeongto's tantrum continues, a hand grabs his wrist. Young Moon stops him, saying what's done is done. He tells him to focus on what he can do now, reminding him that he has bigger issues at hand. Gyeongto calms down, realizing his subordinate is right. He thinks of the Crimson Lady, his other project. He knows if he can just get this to work, but he tells Young Moon he can't let the other matter go. He asks if Young Moon can catch the two from the photo, and with a new resolve, he orders them to summon Elite Team Alpha. Elsewhere, a man overhears the news about the Calamity Emancipator. Young Moon recognizes him, his expression hardening. It's Gyeongtaek Baek, Gyeongto's brother. Young Moon tells Gyeongtaek to mind his own business, but Gyeongtaek just puts an arm around him, saying Young Moon is the one who's distracted. He leans in with a veiled threat about his sister's temper, and insists he's only doing this because he's worried. Family drama at its finest. As Gyeongtaek walks away, Young Moon can only curse his brother's interference. He turns to his subordinate, asking if she's sure the data is gone. She confirms the files were wiped completely, even the backups. He clenches his fist, ordering her to gather any related files she can find, because any small clue is their only hope now. He thinks of the Calamity Emancipator, his new obsession, and Nakyoung's vow for vengeance echoes in the ruins of her city. In the aftermath, a massive evacuation is underway. Jae-rim's partner watches as the last of the civilians are loaded onto buses. Kyung-han spots a familiar blue-haired figure and calls out his name. He rushes across the bridge, desperate to find his friend. Grabbing Hae-chan, he frantically checks if he's been hurt. Hae-chan just laughs, teasing him for being so ruthless. But his eyes drift over the crowd of displaced people. Landing on the lone figure of Shin Jae-rim, Kyung-han snaps him out of it, asking if he's okay. Hae-chan claims Jae-rim sent him away so he wouldn't be a burden, an excuse that leaves Kyung-han looking completely baffled. He points out that the old Hae-chan would have stayed to fight. Our boy stammers, trying to sell his terrible lie. But Kyung-han's skeptical gaze tells him he's not buying it. He pats Hae-chan's shoulder, trying to be supportive anyway, telling him to cheer up, assuming he's just down about being demoted. The red-haired guard calls him an idealist as their partner sighs in relief. A white-haired guard scoffs, saying no one cares what they do. But Kyung-han just points to a group of civilians, thanking another guard. Kyung-han calls the Ivory Bow a true hero, a name that makes Hae-chan flinch. As Jae-won-yo approaches, the team panics, trying to figure out what to do. He gets their attention, cutting through their frantic argument, and confirms they're the team from Daejeon he met earlier. He asks Kyung-han if he's all right after the chaos in District 1. Curious about the strange creature that saved his life, he leans in, his gaze intense, asking for every detail. Hae-chan nervously touches the Miro pin on his collar, feigning ignorance. But Kyung-han recalls the creature speaking, asking if he was hurt. A fact that baffles Jae-won, since calamities can't communicate. Hae-chan suddenly winces in pain, clutching his side. He plays it off as a minor injury, trying to hide his exhaustion. Jae-won gives him a suspicious look before turning away. Nearby, an elderly woman refuses to board the evacuation bus, declaring that this is her home and she'd rather die than leave it. Jae-rim's partner watches, her heart breaking for the displaced residents. Knowing how hard it is to lose everything in a single night, Hae-chan can only watch, the weight of his actions settling in. But he tells them their home hasn't truly disappeared, catching Jae-won's attention. He explains that as long as the foundation remains, they can always build again, one step at a time. A new home, one that will last forever this time. A nice sentiment from the guy who just leveled the city. The red-haired guard scoffs, calling him a psycho, arguing that without the seal, the land is lost forever. His partner tells him she's embarrassed to even know him. As the red-haired guard complains, Jae-won gets an incoming call. Jae-rim's partner defends Hae-chan, much to the other guard's dismay. Jae-won says his goodbyes, telling them to take care. But he pauses, turning back with one last question. He asks Hae-chan and his partner how old they are. Jae-won-yo simply acknowledges their answer. The red-haired guard is completely baffled by the question. Kyung-han calls out to his partner, telling her it's time to go. He says the other guards will handle the rest from here. On the bus back, a foot presses down on a step. Hae-chan jolts in his sleep, mumbling something about his mother. He's lost in a memory of Nakyoung's words, how she would be furious and blame herself for the rest of her life. And that's why she was willing to do anything, to protect the city she loved. Her words weigh heavily on Hae-chan's mind. Miro asks if he's okay, and he quietly confirms he is. He looks out at the ruins, insisting he doesn't regret his choice. Elsewhere, Nakyoung remembers her father's promise. A desperate plea to just make it to Gangneung, to their home. A bloodied memory of a promise now broken. She whispers that her home is gone. Her hand presses against the window, trembling with rage, and she knows exactly who is to blame. The Calamity Emancipator. With tears of rage, she vows to end him. Back at headquarters, Hae-chan is startled by a noise at his door. A new figure appears, saying it's wiser to stay inside. It's Baek Kyung-taek, who notes they're now next-door neighbors. He hopes they'll get along, his smile doing nothing to comfort Hae-chan. In the cafeteria, Jae-rim's partner is stunned by the news. She can't believe an administrator is living in their quarters. Haichan explains he just said it was more comfortable that way, but he complains that the guy is constantly following him. Looks like he's got a new shadow. His partner leans in, asking if Kyung-taek has figured out his secret. Just then, Jae-won-yo turns his attention to Jae-rim's partner. He asks how she's feeling after the incident in Gangneung. He explains he was curious since they rarely cross paths in the dorms. She's completely flustered, her inner fangirl having a major meltdown. Haechan glances over thinking she's lost her mind. Jae-won asks if he's going to eat his food, but Haechan claims it's too spicy. So Jae-won offers a trade, his spicy dish for her yogurt. Haechan can only watch, wondering why they're suddenly so friendly. The other guards murmur, finding it strange that a top ranker is hanging out with them. The whispers continue, gossiping about the Gangneung disaster. Jae-rim's partner notes that everyone is talking about the fallen city. But Jae-hwan suggests they're more interested in the Calamity Emancipator. On the cafeteria screen, a news report confirms the rumors are true. The anchor explains the name comes from the villain's habit of destroying seals. The report shows images from the battle, claiming the Emancipator is mentally unstable. It even alleges the figure spoke of world destruction and tried to talk to the Calamity. Jae-won is stunned, realizing they're twisting his words completely. The other guards whisper that the guy is a delusional killer. One of them mutters that without him, Gangneung would still be safe. Haechan turns to his partner, calling the Emancipator a psycho. He complains that he almost died because of that one guy's rampage. He stands up, telling Jae-won to enjoy the rest of his meal. The two of them watch as he walks away from the table. Jae-rim's partner admits she can barely eat with all the tension in the room, but she knows something doesn't add up about the Emancipator she saw. She's certain his power is on par with a level 1 guard, and shudders to think what would have happened without Jae-won on the scene. She wonders if things would be different with more powerful guards. Jae-won clenches his fist, knowing the local team was a liability. He tells her not to mind the gossip as he gets up to leave. He answers an incoming call from the Jeju R&D head. Apologizing for being in the middle of a meal, he steps away from the others. The voice on the line says the news footage was shocking, even after his briefing. She confirms Gangneung is completely shut down, calling it a miracle no one was hurt. But Jae-won notes that the Emancipator was different from the media's portrayal. His eyes narrow, recalling the strange encounter. The voice on the phone tells him he did well, that they've hit the jackpot. He's confused, but she explains that the crazy guy played right into their hands. She tells him he's a hero now, and his influence will only grow. A news report praises him as a savior, and she says he's one step closer to his goal. But Jae-won argues the Emancipator wasn't delusional at all. In fact, he was reasonable and even helped take down the Calamity, but she cuts him off. She tells him to spare her the details. All that matters is that things are working in their favor. She speaks of the pride and glory of the youngest head administrator in history, and asks if his journey is really going to stop here. Jae-won looks at his phone, quietly confirming it won't. She tells him to keep his eyes on the prize and nothing else. The scene shifts to the city at night as the workday ends. A hand reaches for a door. The day finally over. Haechan tosses his papers onto his bed as Miro asks if he's okay. She notes he's been looking down lately, but he insists he's fine. He leans against the wall, admitting he underestimated the consequences. He wasn't prepared to face so much hatred and hostility. Miro offers her silent support. He shakes it off, saying he just needs to get used to it. But as he looks out the window, he spots Jae-rim's partner walking alone. He wonders where she could possibly be going at this hour. Elsewhere, she unleashes a massive whip of pure blue energy. The blast rips through the training grounds in a blinding flash, but as the light fades, she knows it's still not enough. Not by a long shot. She calls out to her unseen audience, telling them to stop watching. Haechan and Miro emerge, surprised she knew they were there. She tells them to cut the chatter, ready for a fight. She challenges him directly, and he accepts with a confident grin. The two clash in a flurry of motion, and just like that, she's on the ground, calling them monsters for not holding back. Haechan points out she would have been angry if he'd gone easy. She can't argue with that. He asks why she's suddenly training so hard, calling her a powerful level 2 guard. But she dismisses the title, saying she's barely holding on to that rank. She explains that most level 2s are promoted within weeks. But she's been stuck at this level for over 6 months, her frustration clear. He suggests it's because they're young, but she tells him he's wrong. She sits on the ground, her power manifesting as glowing blue ropes, explaining that her ability is good for targeting but lacks raw power. She can handle small threats but knows that's not enough anymore. Haechan listens, a look of understanding on his face. She recalls a past battle where all she could do was run, admitting how humiliating it was to be too powerless to even fight back. Her words strike a chord deep within Haechan. Miro notes that she sounds just like the old Haechan. Ouch. His partner collapses back, admitting her own weakness is infuriating. She asks what his plan is now that Gangneung is over, reminding him he's now the villain of the century with no one left to trust him. He says his only choice is to bet on the Liberation Corps, admitting that Gangneung was a fluke and he can't count on that kind of luck again. What he needs now, more than anything, are powerful allies. He's sure that with his new reputation, they'll try to make contact. She questions if they're even real, but he says they have no other options. But she points out another, far more dangerous problem. The elite guards, a completely different breed of warrior he's now destined to face. She says they may be a mystery, but one thing is certain. They're not called elite for nothing. Hai-chan knows their involvement means he's ticked off the guys at the very top. She cuts him off, reminding him that he's not the only one with problems, pointing out that while he's stronger, he still can't control his power with any real precision. He saw for himself just how skilled the elite guards were in Gangneung, and he won't stand a chance against their teamwork without a solid plan. She hesitates, admitting she might just be nagging him at this point. But when he uses his powers, something just feels off. She explains that it doesn't feel like she's fighting a human. She asks if he understands, and Hai-chan's eyes widen in surprise. Miro glances up at him, then points out that the sun is rising. She reminds him they need to head back, especially with that gray-haired guy around. Hai-chan looks down, her unsettling words echoing in his mind. The next day, the red-haired guard, Gidong, is pouting in the hallway. He complains that Hai-chan should be working, calling him the runt of the team. His senior Kyung-han tells him to cut Hai-chan some slack, but Gidong is annoyed, wondering if Hai-chan and Jae-rim are dating. Kyung-han turns on him, saying, Gidong is the one who's been distracted lately. He accuses him of digging up information on the Calamity Emancipator, and says people have been talking about Kyung-han's strange theories, like the one about the furry creature talking, accusing him of lying just like Hai-chan. Gidong glances away, annoyed by all the recent distractions. He spots Hai-chan, his partner, and Jae-won-yo talking together. He wonders why Jae-won and Jae-rim are so interested in a loser like Hai-chan. He glares at our boy, his resentment growing by the second. Kyung-han tells him the elevator is here, and Gidong says he's taking a break. He stands alone in the elevator, feeling completely overlooked. He wonders why Hai-chan gets special treatment when he's clearly weaker. A new voice calls his name, and a figure peeks around the corner. It's Baek Kyung-taek. Gidong is completely flustered as Kyung-taek confirms his identity. Kyung-taek says Gidong's starstruck reaction is to be expected, but he notes that the young man with blue hair seems less impressed. He asks Gidong for his honest opinion of Wu Hai-chan. Gidong is surprised, wondering why he's so interested in Hai-chan. Kyung-taek explains he's heard good things and is scouting for talent. Gidong immediately launches into a rant, calling Hai-chan lazy. He claims our boy is just a suck-up who gets by on Kyung-han's favoritism. The jealousy is practically a physical force. He insists that everyone is being completely deceived by him. Kyung-taek just smiles, saying he'll keep that in mind. Gidong bows respectfully and walks away. With a grin, Kyung-taek notes that Hai-chan has made some enemies, but he dismisses it, saying a few faults just make things interesting. The scene shifts to a government meeting, discussing the Calamity Emancipator. They're stunned, believing the Neo-Human project was shut down for good. An official clarifies that the project was only suspended, not terminated. Another tries to pass the blame, saying the elite guards are the Prime Minister's problem. The Prime Minister slams his hand down, furious at the accusation. A woman at the table tells them to stop bickering and focus. Her expression is grim as she prepares to ask the real question. She wonders if this means Project Neo-Human was actually a success. An official says they'll have to capture the Emancipator to be sure. He explains the project's main failure was the subject's inability to use its power. But if the Emancipator can wield it freely, then the experiment worked. They wonder if he's connected to the Liberation Corps, but have no answers yet. The woman grits her teeth, asking if the Emancipator could be a guard. She slams her hand on the table, enraged by the thought. She argues that their dependence on the guards has gone too far. An older man calmly asks what she suggests they do about it. She insists they must reassert the government's authority before it's too late. But the older man dismisses her concerns about the guards' leadership. He's told the rest of the subjects are mostly missing. A subordinate argues that the other projects were a waste of time, but the official insists on keeping all his options open. He looks down at a photo of a familiar blue-haired boy. He's considering every single possibility. Just then, his eyes widen as a memory flashes through his mind, a vision of a past disaster, with voices pleading for help. A hand reaches out from the rubble, desperate and weak. The voices urge the rescuers to save the child first. The official's eye twitches, the memory hitting him hard. He rises from his chair, his expression grim. He needs to find the elite guard who met the Emancipator, because he has a few questions he needs to ask them. Elsewhere, Hai-chan stands in an elevator, looking annoyed. He's sharing the ride with Jae-hwan-yo. Talk about an awkward silence. Hai-chan finally breaks it, asking if Jae-hwan is busy. He points out that head administrators usually have a lot on their plate. Jae-hwan just smiles, saying his workload has gotten lighter lately. Hai-chan flinches, telling him to just come out with it. He calls Jae-hwan out for following him and his partner around. Jae-hwan stammers, denying it as the elevator continues its descent. Hai-chan offers to help if it's about work, but Jae-hwan panics. He apologizes and says he'll get off at the next floor. The elevator doors slide open with a soft chime. Jaewon steps out, but Haechan remains inside. He apologizes for making things uncomfortable for Jaewon, and explains that after finding out they were both 19, he admits he doesn't often meet people his own age. The doors close, leaving Haechan completely stunned. Later, his partner asks if he thinks Jaewon just wanted to be friends. She explains that in the end, he's only 19, just like them. But his rank is so high, anyone his age would be too intimidated to approach him. And after seeing his power in Gangnam, it's hard to see him as just a kid. Haechan adds they also have a pretty big secret to hide from him. He suddenly gets an idea, grabbing her shoulders and asking if Jaewon wants to be friends. She admits that training with Haechan isn't very helpful, since their powers are so different. But she has no one else to practice with as Haechan leans in with a plan. She realizes what he's suggesting, as he offers a very mischievous grin. Elsewhere, Jaewon stands in a snowy clearing, ready to begin. Haechan bangs on his door while his partner tries to stop him. Horrified, he actually did it. She wonders what Haechan will do while she fights, only to see him sitting on a rock. He gives her a thumbs up, saying observation is also a key training tactic. What a great friend. She turns back, realizing she has a chance to train one-on-one with the ivory bow. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity she can't pass up. With a new resolve, she dashes forward to begin the match. From the sidelines, Haechan cheers for whoever wins, just enjoying the show. He tries to practice his own power, but only ends up hurting himself. Miro peeks out, wondering if she should step in to stop the chaos. His partner unleashes a massive energy whip, desperate to land a single hit. But Jaewon effortlessly counters with a flick of his finger. The attack is completely neutralized, sending her flying backward. Haechan watches the display, his expression grim. He thinks of Jaewon Yo, the legendary ivory bow. The sheer amount of power he wields is incredible, but his intricate control is on a completely different level. Haechan looks down at his own hands, feeling hopelessly outmatched. He knows that even if their power levels are similar, their skill is worlds apart. His partner skids across the ground, dodging another attack. Jaewon rushes to her side, apologizing for losing control of his power. He helps her up, admitting this is his first time training with anyone. Haechan asks Jaewon why he's so formal, joking if he's ever had friends before. His partner panics, trying to apologize for Haechan's bluntness as Jaewon freezes up. Haechan is stunned, realizing his joke just landed with the accuracy of a guided missile. Jaewon admits he's not used to being around people his own age. He explains that's why he makes things uncomfortable, unsure of how to approach them. Haechan pats the ground, inviting them both to sit down and take a break. He points out that his partner is too battered to continue training anyway. Jaewon asks if it's really okay for him to be away from his duties for so long. He dismisses it, saying his R&D administrator handles most of the work in Jeju. Jaerim's partner asks why he's really staying here in Daejeon. He fidgets, explaining that the Gangnam incident changed everything. He's now the temporary project leader for the Calamity Emancipator team. His mission is to capture the Emancipator and find out who's behind him, but he admits there's something that keeps bothering him. He's haunted by the question of why the Emancipator destroys the seals. He's certain there's an ulterior motive he can't yet see. Haechan just looks away, dismissing it as nothing important. Jaewon thanks them for their time. He bows and begins to walk away from the clearing, but he pauses, turning back to them one last time. He tells them to forget what he said about being uncomfortable, and asks if they can eat together again tomorrow, catching Haechan off guard. He offers a hopeful, almost beaming smile. Progress. As he leaves, the two are left alone in the quiet woods. They agree he's definitely different from their first impression, but Haechan knows they still need to be on their guard around him. He calls for Miro to come out, noting her unusual silence, but she suddenly bursts out of his collar and dashes past them. She races into the woods, calling back to Haechan. She asks if he can sense it, that someone has been watching them for a long time. Miro leads him to a note, nailed to a tree in the woods. It's an invitation for the Calamity Emancipator to a rendezvous. The next night, he arrives at the designated spot in a ruined city. He finds the rusted sign of an old supermarket. Now, in his hooded disguise, he knows this is far too risky. His partner had argued against it, sure it was a trap set by the guards. But Haechan knew a guard would just arrest him, not send a fancy invitation. He insists this is their one chance to finally find an ally. After all, getting their attention was the entire point of his rampage. A new figure appears in the shadows, and Haechan flinches. A masked man with a ponytail lunges forward, a blade of blue energy in hand. He swings his weapon with blinding speed. Haechan dodges just in time as the attack shatters the ground. He lands, demanding to know who his opponent is. The attacker prepares another strike as Haechan's eyes glow with power. The two clash again, a blur of motion and light. The attacker taunts him, saying his moves are sloppy. So Haechan forms his own weapon, a claw of pure energy. The attacker's eyes widen, clearly surprised by the move. He seems to recognize the unique form of Haechan's power, and is immediately disarmed, sent sprawling to the ground. Well, that was a short interview. Haechan stands over him, confirming he's the one they're looking for. He He asks if this was all just some kind of test. A new voice confirms it was, saying he likes to be thorough. The newcomer notes that Hae-chan has taken great care to hide himself, and then reveals he knows his true identity, Woo Hae-chan, a level 3 guard. He even knows about Miro, his little calamity companion. He suggests they skip the questions and start with proper introductions. A woman with curly red hair removes her cap, revealing herself as the vice captain of the Emancipators. Hae-chan questions why he should trust them, and she reminds him they were the ones who fought the elite guards in Gangneung. The vice captain points out he wouldn't be here if he truly feared a trap. Hae-chan asks how she knew his identity, and she says it wasn't hard, revealing they had eyes on him long before the Gangneung incident, and that they possess information no one else has. She explains their elder knew it was him, but she needed to confirm it herself. Hae-chan is stunned, asking how they know him as she notes his memory loss. She calls them old acquaintances, but says it's a long and dangerous story. As she tries to move on, Hae-chan demands more answers, but Miro quietly tells him to hear them out first. The other members of her team watch from the shadows. Hae-chan reluctantly agrees, telling her to start talking. He asks what they want, but she has a question of her own. She knows he understands the calamities and asks why he sets them free. He grits his teeth, saying it's the obvious choice. The right thing to do for both the living and the dead. He explains that leaving them sealed is like ignoring a ticking time bomb. Now it's his turn, demanding to know everything about their group. But she tells him he's still an outsider and this isn't the place. She agrees to tell him one thing for now. The Emancipators were formed to destroy every sealing talisman in the world. Just like him, she officially offers him a place in their ranks. But more than his power, they need him to become their symbol. She asks if he's ever heard of them, and he admits he hasn't. She explains they've focused on building strength, not their public image. The guards have left them alone, underestimating their threat. But they've also worked to erase their existence from the public record. If they revealed themselves now, they'd be dismissed as a radical cult. Any truth they spoke would be buried by the guards' propaganda. Which is why they need a mascot, someone like the Calamity Emancipator. A mascot, huh? Hope the job comes with a cool costume. But Hae-chan has one condition, much to her surprise. He demands to speak with their leader before he'll cooperate. One of her subordinates tries to protest the bold request, but the vice captain agrees, stunning her own team. She clarifies that she won't take him to their main headquarters, but to a temporary base camp where their elder is waiting. She hopes this gesture proves just how much they need him, and asks the Calamity Emancipator for his final decision. They travel to an abandoned village in a restricted zone near Daejeon. The vice captain announces that they've arrived at their destination. Hae-chan takes in the desolate, unfamiliar surroundings. She welcomes him to the temporary base of the Daejeon Emancipators, but he recognizes the place, seeing a sign for an old guard facility. She confirms it was abandoned after the area was restricted, explaining that even the elite guards can't watch over every lost territory. As they walk, he senses a strange energy from the people here. A disheveled man with curly hair calls out to the vice captain. He stumbles forward, surprised to see her back so early. Looks like someone's party got cut short. She identifies him as Daeok Park, who should be at the main base. He explains he came to see the elder and get some fresh air. He approaches, noting he didn't expect her to bring a guest. And with a knowing stare, he identifies the infamous Calamity Emancipator. Miro warns Hae-chan that something feels very wrong about this guy. Daeok suddenly grabs Hae-chan's hoodie with surprising speed. He pulls him closer, saying the little voice inside. Must be the one they call number 315. Miro panics as Hae-chan tries to break free from the man's grip. Daeuk's expression is grim, his focus absolute. He taunts Hae-chan for being a fighter with no manners. Hae-chan is stunned, realizing the man is completely unaffected by Miro's power. Daeuk lets go, claiming it was all just a joke. The vice captain scolds him, but he just laughs it off. She reminds him that Hae-chan is their guest, and he dismissively agrees. He then leans in, warning Hae-chan that she's the one he should be afraid of. One wrong move, he says, and she'll beat him senseless. Hae-chan grits his teeth, clearly not appreciating the man's idea of a welcome. Daeuk stares, saying he doesn't know what will happen with the elder, but he hopes they can remain allies as he walks away. Hae-chan wonders if all the emancipators are this unhinged. His mind flashes back to the man's words about number 315. He whispers to Miro, who explains that the man absorbed her power. He's stunned, asking if there are others like him, but Miro says it's different. His power just vanished without a trace, unlike with Hae-chan. The vice captain turns, asking what they're whispering about. She tells him to be more careful when talking to Miro, as he's being far too obvious. She warns him that they can't afford to pay for his carelessness. A fair point, given his track record. She tells him to be patient, as the elder will explain everything. She says they've been waiting for him, a statement that only confuses him more. She knocks on a door, ignoring his question. She announces herself as Juyong Lim, and Hae-chan looks on nervously. His expression is filled with a growing apprehension. A voice from within acknowledges her, and the special guest she's brought. A figure with a wooden mask and a long braid stands with their back to them. The elder turns slightly, their eye visible through the mask, and says, "Good work." Haichan's eye widens in shock as a memory flashes, a voice telling him to forget. The memory is a blur of light and a distorted, screaming face. A voice insists that he has to forget it all. Haichan stumbles back, tripping over his own feet. The elder and the vice captain look on as he crashes to the floor. He clutches his head as the elder reaches out, asking if he's all right. Haichan asks if he's finally meeting the leader of the emancipators. The elder confirms it, apologizing for the strange mask. But as they speak, Haichan can't sense any real power from them. He wonders if this is truly the head of the organization. Not exactly an intimidating first impression. The elder seems to understand his doubt, but has other priorities. Telling him to let Miro out of her compressed form. Haichan is stunned, but the elder just dismisses it for now. They ask if meeting them has at least built some trust. But Haichan is more suspicious than ever, questioning their motives. The elder admits their actions seem strange for a secret group. But they explain that they're simply running out of time. So they decide to get straight to the point, announcing their plan to launch an all-out attack on the guards. Haichan is completely floored by the sudden declaration, and they need his help to make it happen. Well, that's one way to start a job interview. The elder begins to explain the true state of the world, how calamities erupted across the globe from Mexico to Paris, and how Seoul itself was lost in the chaos. For 7 years, humanity has huddled in small cities around the seals, but the elder reveals a chilling truth. The world's leaders chose to protect the seals, not destroy them. They question why powerful nations with vast resources wouldn't just eliminate the threat once and for all. Haichan admits he couldn't understand why they'd hold on to a ticking time bomb. The elder confirms he's right, it's not incompetence. Rebuilding cities and restoring peace is simple for them. The real problem is that they can't destroy the calamities, because the world's leaders discovered something terrible. That the calamities could be harnessed as a weapon, a power deadlier than any nuclear arsenal. The elder explains that whoever controls this power will rewrite the world order. A flash of a memory, a body submerged in a strange red fluid. The vice captain asks if he finally understands the truth. This is why the world's leaders cling to the seals, to their bombs. It's a global game of chicken that will eventually wipe everyone out. Haichan holds up a hand, trying to process the sheer scale of the conspiracy. The elder offers him a seat, but our boy is too stunned to move. He tries to summarize. Every nation is trying to weaponize the calamities. And to protect their research, they've lied to the public, claiming the seals are for protection so no one dares to touch them. He sighs, finding it all hard to believe, but asks his next question. How could they possibly know all of this? The elder reveals they used to be a part of the guards, which isn't exactly a satisfying answer. Haichan points out that every guard he's ever met has been completely in the dark. The elder clarifies that this secret is only known to a select few, the administrators. He argues that research on this scale would need a massive lab, and as he speaks, the terrible truth begins to dawn on him. The elder confirms the experiment is being led by the most secretive group in the country, and their former comrades. Haichan grits his teeth, realizing who they must be. The elite guards. They work directly for the government, their operations shrouded in total secrecy. And they're a much larger force than anyone realizes, with their own headquarters. Haichan connects the dots, asking if they mean the Seoul base. The vice captain is surprised he's heard of it, as he explains it was a rumor. A story that Seoul wasn't abandoned but was being used by the elites. He admits it was quickly dismissed as just an urban legend. But the elder confirms that the legend is very, very real. Seoul is both their headquarters and the site of a massive, top-secret lab, where countless secret experiments are still being carried out to this day. Miro quietly tells Haichan he can trust them. The elder explains that countless projects have tried to weaponize calamities, but nearly all of them have ended in complete failure. He turns to face Haichan, his expression hidden by the mask. But some, he explains, have made significant progress. If any country were to succeed in weaponizing a calamity, it would trigger a global arms race of unimaginable scale, a world filled with suspicion, lies, and deceit, until the seals finally break under the strain of their own power. And to make matters worse, the Seoul lab is on the verge of a breakthrough. Someone has to stop the guards before it's too late. Haichan finally understands the reason for their existence. But he has one more question. How do they know what's happening now? He asks if they have a mole inside the guards. The elder just smiles, confirming they have eyes and ears everywhere. Apparently, HR isn't doing a great job with background checks, even in the darkest corners of the world. Elsewhere, a young man with curly hair reads a report. He notes the subject's lack of skill, but his connection to the emancipators. He's certain they're protecting him for some reason. He looks up as a voice calls his name. Young Moon. It's Gyungto Baek, who twirls into the room in a surprisingly good mood. Young Moon asks what's going on, but she just smiles mysteriously. She grins, explaining she's just had a brilliant idea. announcing that her precious baby will soon be complete.